Arsenal nil, Everton nil. Points 1, points dropped 2. Just give me the stats because talking about this game is going to be painful. This is the Arsenal Reaction Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is our Raw Reaction Show, joining you the morning after the night before. Arsenal nil, Everton nil, really disappointing result. Just really crap, like really awful, genuinely awful feeling this morning. Usually I'm pretty good at kind of detaching kind of my emotions from, from the game in many ways. And I'm usually pretty good at trying to, compartmentalize things, but this morning's tough. This morning is tough. It is very tough to try and make sense of what we saw yesterday, and to try and make sense of the game, and we're going to do that with you. Of course, I like to think of these shows after disappointing results as something of a therapy session, and we're going to open up the floor to calls in the second half of the show. I started putting slides together this morning, and then I stopped because I couldn't help but look into kind of what are we going to put together here. We all saw what we saw yesterday. We all saw the frustration within the crowds and the growing lack of urgency at the end of the game. It was the lineup that we wanted to see. I think, pretty much everybody. I saw so many posts on social media going into the game with people's lineup they wanted to see. That was the lineup. That was the lineup I put in our preview yesterday morning. That's the lineup I wanted to see. The substitutions, we'll talk about that. There's some odd substitution choices yesterday. Really, really strange. And we'll also talk about the fact that Mikel Arteta's press conference also didn't enjoy that. Didn't enjoy the press conference. I sat in on the press conference because I spoke to David Raya after the game very quickly, interview of him coming out probably tomorrow morning. But then I quickly went in and ran into the press room just to see if Arteta had done his yet, and he hadn't. So I sat in on the press conference. I actually asked Sean Dyche a question about how long they'd had to prepare for the game and, of course, what that meant. Just on Everton briefly, obviously they didn't come to get a result in terms of a victory. We know that, they came to get a point, and I have absolutely no qualms with that at all. If you're scrapping down the bottom of the table, of course you're going to go to these big grounds away from home. You're going to lock up. You're going to try and frustrate. You're going to hit on the counter, and the emphasis is then on the home side to go and get the result. It is on the home side to break you down, to create chances, and completely dominate in areas that, we have sadly failed to yesterday. We created chances and we created opportunities, but when they came, we didn't take them. And Pickford, yes, had a very good day in goal, but even then, I really got frustrated with the lack of urgency in the last 20 minutes. I was very frustrated at the substitutions that were made. Obviously, the Declan Rice change is enforced, as was explained, because he suffered with a problem and he had to come off. But taking off Martin Ødegaard, he described that as a tactical decision, and I can't help but question what tactically that's doing. Because if there's one player, other than Bukayo Saka, of course, who we'll also talk about in a second, there's one player that's going to generate you potentially a match-winning chance or a match-winning opportunity, then of course Martin Ødegaard is that player. He'd already had a number of opportunities, of course, in the game. He had the shot that went over the bar when he was supplied by Marino. He had the shot where he took a couple of touches, floored a couple of Everton players and dragged his shot wide. And he had a shot also that Pickford saved, of course, very, very well, which probably our biggest chance of the game as well. Had to get the shot through 3 Everton players, did so, but Pickford made a good save at the end of it. And I think when it comes to those chances, he has to at least put one of those away. Saka obviously had a chance in the first half that Tarkowski blocked. Martinelli had a low drive that Pickford saved. after we countered really well through Declan Rice. In the second half, we had that big chance at the start of it where Saka had that low volley down to the bottom right-hand corner that Pickford again saved well. Marino had a header from a corner that he has to put either side of Pickford, and he heads it straight at the goalkeeper. Declan Rice, of course, found Havertz in the box, but the ball was just slightly behind the striker and the touch wasn't good enough. Havertz laid off Saka in the box, but had a shot blocked. Saka had a drive across goal that Pickford obviously pushed out. Timber, of course, got to the byline, cut the ball back to nobody, and it was cleared very comfortably. And then there was the Partey penalty claim, and at the end, which wasn't a penalty. It wasn't like we didn't create anything. But what I'm most disappointed about yesterday, and particularly from Arteta's side, is the lack of ownership. It's the lack of accountability. And it's also this level of too much control. Now, I want to read you a quote from Mikel Arteta's press conference after the game. You notice that there are no slides. I said I started putting slides together and I thought I'm just going to end up rambling. So there's not much structure to part one. We'll have more structure in part two when I invite your calls on. And I'm sincerely hoping that some of our vocal chat box members are going to be phoning in. But he was asked about the kind of the actually, let me go on to the, because as usual, the Arsenal website doesn't have the exact quotes, but the Football.London website, if you go over there, does. So he was asked about the crowd, and he was asked and said about kind of the demanding more from the fans behind you. That was Sam Dean who asked that question. He says, we have to manage the frustration and the time. If we start to speed up the game, but there is no room to speed it up, we start to rush the game. We need to understand that. If we start to force and make mistakes, we have to stay very far away from that game. Now, I don't agree with him, because throughout the entire game, we'd been in a position where urgency was not on display. Control was on display. And control was not generating the type of opportunities that we're going to see us score, particularly in the second half. First half, we created a lot of good openings and chances, didn't take them. Second half, beyond Saka's opportunity in the first few moments of the half, we created very little in the way of big chances. We created even less after Ødegaard came off as well. And from that perspective, I was frustrated that there wasn't a sense of urgency. The changes that we saw obviously enforced Jorginho on for Declan Rice. That's not really a tactical shift. Waneri on for Ødegaard. Again, not a tactical change. The only shape change we saw was obviously Marino coming off for Jesus, and then and Havertz kind of dovetailing with Jesus. Jesus did nothing again. Did absolutely nothing when he came off the bench. And then he brings Thomas Partey on at right back. And I'm like, you're putting crosses into the box as opportunities. You've got a ready-made left back on the bench. He's sitting on the bench. He's sitting there ready to come on. Lewis Skelly, I hadn't got an issue with him coming off because, as we know, he's had a foot infection, which means not fully fit. So he couldn't play the full 90. Don't have an issue with that. Comes off, brings Partey on, puts Timber at left back, which we know is something that stunted us at Fulham. And you've got a ready-made left back in Tierney that you could play Timber still, I thought Timber was doing all right at right back. And as soon as we made that change, and as soon as Ødegaard came off, Saka became incredibly isolated on that right-hand side. Very little was going down there. And instead, the balls were being forced down the left flank, because that's where our most creative fullback was in Timber. Martinelli was not, again, offering too much at all. Trossard comes off the bench and, again, doesn't really offer too much whatsoever. I will say, and I know there's a lot of emphasis on the manager this morning, and quite rightly, and I'll talk a little bit more about Arteta in a second. But from the player perspective, it was also disgraceful. It was not good enough from a lot of the players on that pitch yesterday. It was simply not good enough. Some of the decision-making, some of the hiding, some of the cowardice, I would argue. There was a real sense that nobody really beyond Saka wanted to take responsibility. No one really wanted to take the game by the scruff of the neck and really go for it. There was a moment where Saka drove down the right-hand side, took 3 Everton players on, lost the ball. No one was around him to pick up the loose touches. No one was around him to pick up the loose balls that could have fallen after he was being kind of kicked and hacked down by several Everton players. No one was there. And when you're in a title race, you need that intensity. And especially when I've not even mentioned the fact today that Liverpool have dropped points. It's taken until nearly 10 minutes in the show before talking about the opportunity that we've obviously missed in the game, because we could have closed the gap again. And it's like, because Liverpool draw, the title race continues to be dangled in front of us. I use the example, those dog toys that you strap like something around the dog's head and it's got like a string and it kind of dangles like a treat. And it doesn't matter how fast they run, they're always the same distance away from the treat and they can never get there. And that's how it feels being an Arsenal fan right now. Doesn't matter what we do, the treat still remains dangling in front of us, but we can't close the gap to it, even when it kind of like looks like it might change. So from that perspective, I was really disappointed with the players' performance yesterday, and how obviously they responded. But equally, and just the last point on Arteta as well, and the last point from the press conference, I got Ten Hag vibes. I said this to Harry in the post-match, just after the press conference. I got Ten Hag vibes. That's when you know things are when you know things are bad. I got Ten Hag vibes in the press conference because the performance wasn't good enough, but there was no accountability taken by Arteta, I felt, in the press conference. I don't feel like he talked about what needed to be better. He talked about how Arsenal deserve. And he's right. If there was one team that deserved to win the game, obviously it's not Everton. It's not Everton, obviously, but that doesn't matter because Everton never came here to win. Everton came here to frustrate and lock down and get a point. That's what they did. That's what they did. So when your team is facing somebody like that, it's on you to be good enough to break them down. And we weren't. So say that. You have to have a level of accountability. And that's why I bring up and I'm not talking about Ten Hag's management. I'm not talking about Ten Hag's excuses. I don't think Arteta made excuses in the press conference, but it's the lack of accountability that frustrated me. I just want a bit of accountability to go, we weren't good enough here. This wasn't good enough about our play. And when he's mentioned that we didn't put the ball in the back of the net, but I think we need to hear a bit more. We need to hear a bit more about what he's not happy about. I get the defensive players. I get you want to take the emphasis off them. I absolutely get that. But there was a lack of accountability I felt when listening to him, sitting in that room, just taking in the press conference, taking in his answers to questions. And that frustrated me. And I said to Harry that it felt a bit Ten Hag, and Harry agreed with me as well. And it wasn't the only one who agreed with me when I brought it up to some others later in the day. Now, we're going to go to part 2 in a second. And I'm going to put in fact, what I'll do right now is I'll put the StreamYard link in for you all to click if indeed you want it. So make sure if you want to call in, I'm going to type and talk at the same time. Here is the link. Make sure, of course, you are 18 plus, and of course that you have a webcam. Must have a webcam. Be in a quiet place as well. Otherwise, we can't indulge in having you on, unfortunately. But that's the link. I just want to talk about a couple of things as well before we go into part 2. First one is the most important thing that happened yesterday, which was Kevin Campbell's celebration. And it was really good. And it was great to see kind of that harmony. It was very emotional. And it was a shame that we couldn't get the result. It was a very Kevin type result in a way, because both teams that he likes, of course, came away with something. And that, in a way, for me, the emotion of that was certainly carried on into the game from my perspective, at least. So I was very frustrated about that. Not frustrated, sir. I was very humbled by that. What I was frustrated about was some of the videos I saw post-match. Some of it was disgusting. Some of the things I saw online yesterday was abhorrent being said. I saw videos where I'm not going to repeat the words that some pretty horrible people have used, but like, what is the world coming to when you're seeing words being used like we saw on social media yesterday? Absolutely disgusting. And then I turn over to AFTV, which I don't intend to do. It wasn't a choice. It's just your algorithm does things. And a 17-year-old kid's getting stick. Ethan Waneri didn't offer loads yesterday. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not going to sit here and bash the performance of a kid that's being asked to come off the bench for our captain at Arsenal Football Club, who are in a title race, who's not doing enough. I'm not gonna sit here and bash a 17-year-old child. Grow the hell up. Look at yourself. It's embarrassing. and fair play to James. I said it on. I put a qualifying tweet underneath. It's not just. I don't want to go on a whole generalizing of it, but I thought James, responded in the right way to those comments. Really bizarre, strange reaction. And I think people say things in the heat of the moment, but you got to take ownership for what you say still. And that was really, really disappointing. And I genuinely hope that there is some kind of ramification for some of the things that we saw said yesterday, because it wasn't acceptable. Right, we're going to go into part 2. And your questions, but also our calls from our listeners. As I've mentioned before, I've also put it into the link in the description. I've got a day off today, so I've got time to sit back and relax and listen to some of what you've got to say, because I've spoken for too long. Right, let's go to part 2. Your questions are more right after this. Okay, this is part 2 of the show where we tackle your calls today, and we're going to be getting some people on. So if you would like to come on, the link, as I say, I'll keep posting it into the chat box. It is a pinned comment as well. You need to be over the age of 18. You need to have a webcam. I hope those of you that are being very vocal in the chat box this morning also take the opportunity to come on and speak your mind and, ask some questions. And ask me some questions perhaps as well. We're going to get our first caller on, and it's going to be Daniel. Dan, mate, how are you doing this morning? Dejected is probably the word I would use to describe the look on your face at the moment. How are we?
Well, mostly tired, but yeah.
Me too.
Just woken up. Yeah. Well, I couldn't watch the game because of the 3 p.m. blackout we have here.
Of course.
So I was listening to it in the pub, headphones on, and yeah.
I assume you've managed to catch up on the highlights and stuff afterwards, though, as well.
No.
You didn't want to watch them.
No. Well, because I listened to the game and I didn't feel like that I need to, because I got I could visualize what was happening. Fair enough. Guess. And at first I saw the lineup. Gabriel Martinelli, yeah. When I saw his name and face in a starting lineup, I wanted to bang my head on the table, because I'm so frustrated with seeing him in that team. He's offered literally nothing lately.
Yeah, I disagree with you, mate. Martinelli has been not just today, but he's been disappointing for a long while.
Yeah.
And he's disappointing. I guess the question mark is, though, is what's the alternative, mate? With what's available. Sorry? What's for you the alternative to Martinelli at the moment? Because Trossard came on and didn't exactly offer much either, did he?
Raheem Sterling, and you know me, I wasn't Sterling's biggest fan when he joined us, but if I was him, I would be incredibly angry, because why is this kid starting over me? He's been playing terrible, and he's still being rewarded. And yeah, Trossard, he hasn't done much better recently either, has to be said. But it's just the same every week, pretty much.
Yeah.
And another frustrating moment was when I heard that Martin Ødegaard was coming off.
Yeah.
And I thought, why?
He wasn't having a great game. It's worth pointing that out. He wasn't having a good game at all. But as I mentioned in part 1, if there's a player that's going to do something or create a moment of magic, it's him, right?
Exactly this. And like you, I normally don't watch AFTV for a lot of reasons. But the only video that I watched was of Lee Judge.
Yeah. Who is a friend of mine. I'll put that out there. And I saw what Lee said, and I sincerely hope that, and if he's watching, and he might be, I sincerely hope he comes out and takes back what he said, because I thought it was really horrible. I do.
I mean, I disagreed with the stuff about Miles Lewis.
Scary.
Yeah. Thank you for.
You're all good, man. Keep going.
Because like he's a young kid and like he's still learning
The
trade.
Yeah.
Trade. And yeah. But like not like 95% of what he said, I agreed with.
I agree with the sentiment of the frustration. I don't agree with the words that Lee chose to use. I don't need to repeat them because they were pretty. I mean, not even pretty. They were bad.
Yeah, no, like you, like there's like no urgency, no hunger.
Nunandinho saying in the chat that Lee has apologised apparently when he was on Potsley's show. So fair play, Lee, and it's good. And things do get said in the moment. I understand that. Like,
well, yeah, and plus, like, this is at home. This is at home. Like, this wasn't at their place.
Yeah,
it was at home, and we can't draw. We need to win. Like, especially like we're in. Well, I don't know if we're still in the title race, to be fair.
As I said, it keeps getting dangled in front of us, and we can't. It's almost like you want Liverpool to have won in some ways because you're like, I just want to know it's over, like because it's just being dangled there ahead of us.
Yeah. Like I'd rather it be over now than
being kind of carried along into the end and then to lose it again. Like it's like I get what you mean.
Yeah, have that heartbreak, and I'm not. And like it's an overreaction to say Arteta out at this point. It really is. Like is like you, I agree that this contract he's got in 3 years, we should win something. Like
he's got to deliver something in this contract. Yeah, 100%.
But like for me, the only way that, or the only time that I would get rid of him sooner is if we finish outside the top 4. And like it, I'm not saying it will happen, but it's a horrible feeling to think about.
Yeah. And I do feel pretty horrible at the moment about things. You know, I'm pretty good at, I feel, at detaching myself emotionally from games once they're done these days. And it's definitely something I always recommend to people to learn to be able to do because it does make your life a lot better. But yesterday was difficult. Dan, thank you so much for your time, mate, and your patience. I really appreciate it. Thank you, mate.
Yeah. Cheers.
Have a good Sunday, mate. Enjoy it. Let's go to King, who's up next. How you doing, mate? You good, Joel?
Yeah, I'm good. How you doing?
Not bad, mate. Not bad. You're looking a little bit evil with the hoodie on, mate. Like delivering me some bad news.
No, I'm just a bit
Sunday morning
tired.
vibes, right?
Yeah, Sunday morning, work night shift yesterday.
Tell
So,
me how you're
but
feeling, man. After, I mean, a night shift is not great to work, and double that down with the performance we saw, not great. So yeah.
no, not unfortunately. But my frustration is more with the online fan base.
Really, that's your biggest
Yeah,
frustration yesterday. Fair enough.
yeah.
Some of the stuff
And I'm going to tell you why. Yeah, because for me, yesterday the performance, especially in the second half, wasn't good enough. I think we can all agree that we didn't do enough in the second half. I do think that some of the decisions made by Mikel yesterday were wrong. I do think we made too many changes.
Yep.
I mean, if you change your whole midfield and then you change the fullback, so Timber went from right to left, and then we brought in Thomas Partey on right, and then you change the whole setup in the attack except Saka. So basically, only Raya, Saliba, Gabriel, and Saka play their position that they started with. Everything else changes. So Trossard comes into the left, Jesus comes in as a forward, Havertz drops to midfield, Navarro comes in midfield, Jorginho comes in the midfield. So that's a lot of changes. And it's going to be extremely hard to get any kind of momentum when you change so many positions for such a period. So I think you can blame that on Mikel. You
What's
can blame.
interesting? Let me point out, Kim, because last season I remember
Yeah,
Arteta was criticised for not rotating enough, and toward the end of seasons, we'd have burnout, and players would not be playing at the level because they played so many games that
yeah,
they wouldn't be playing at the required standard. So, where's this balance? Like, how can we have one and then the other? Where I think you're right. I think when you do
yeah,
change things up and you do make a lot of changes, that does disrupt momentum. But I mean, it was the same midfield, I think, that started the game against Monaco on Wednesday, and obviously yeah, it wasn't an amazing performance, but it was pretty comfortable in terms of that we created a lot of good chances and we ultimately scored 3 of them. We should have scored more. Um, we we didn't really change too much from that game. So where does the downturn in the level from Wednesday to today come from? Is it because the opponent's different? Is it because Monaco came to try and get a result, or is Everton kind of dug in and sat back and just defended well and Pickford had a good day? And I know that Arteta's getting a lot of stick, and I don't think he can get a lot of stick for the substitutions and for the way the end of the game, the approach to the end of the game as well, and how there was a lack of urgency. But also, I think there's got to be something said about the players still. I think the players are getting an easy ride from some of the fans, actually, from the performance yesterday.
yeah. Like obviously the players, and for me especially the senior players, they have to do more. Tom, like players like Gabriel Jesus, even someone like Kai Havertz
Mm,
yesterday. Like for me, and I've said it before, when you're young, you are expected to be inconsistent. But
mm,
when you are at the age of a Trossard, of a Jesus, of a Sterling, of a Kai Havertz,
yeah.
the expectation is that you are supposed to be there to bail us out. We
Mm,
can't
mm,
always expect that it has to be something magical from Erdegaard, or it has to be something magical from Bukayo Saka. Like we need others to also step up. We need someone to be like, you know what, today I'm going to take the ball and I'm going to win us the game. And I do think that we lack that. I do think that we lack bravery, especially from the attacking players. I
mm,
think that the defensive structure, it was excellent. I can't remember Everton even having a shot on target. So the defense and the defensive structure is at an elite level, but the attack is not matching that level. And that's a problem. And also,
mm.
there's questions about what has happened to Sterling. I'm not saying that Sterling has been amazing, but with
There-
the
There's got to be
characteristics
something. Something
that
has to have.
Sterling has,
Something has
something
to
has
have
had
happened.
to happen
Yeah.
because he has gone from starting a few games, getting cameos, to now he's not even getting 5 minutes cameos, not even getting 10 minutes cameos. He's just sitting there on the bench. And why did we loan him in if we aren't even going to give him a few chances? I'm not saying that Sterling is the answer to all of our problems, but if you're never getting the opportunity consistently, when will you get momentum to hit form?
Mm, mm,
So that is a problem, and we do see that we are struggling in open play to create chances, especially in the league. That has become a problem, and set pieces can't always be the solution. As good as we are at it,
mm,
a team like Everton, they thrive when we put in crosses because they got Tarkovsky, they got Braithwaite, and they have their block, and they're comfortable in being pressed. And we saw that yesterday. So for me, I would have, for example, kept Odegaard a bit longer on the pitch. I understand that Declan Rice was injured, so he couldn't play longer. You take him out for me, and you put Partey in that six, and you play Nawaneri, Odegaard, and Partey. So you have a bit more structure. Then I would have kept Timber at right back, and I'll put in a left-footed left back, and then I would have kept Martinelli with his pace and give it a few more minutes, not to just change everything up so quickly, so that it changes, 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 and we lose momentum.
mm,
And I think that that is something that we have to do better. But also, the reason why Mikel made so many changes is because in the second half, we weren't good enough. We weren't putting pressure on Pickford. Pickford had a comfortable second half. I think
mm,
in the first half, if we were a bit more clinical, if we took the right decisions, we could have gone away with a 2-0 lead. And I think we win that game comfortable
Mm.
because Everton couldn't offer us any threat. But then again, I have to go back to the fans. And a lot of fans have questioned Mikel, why don't you play Eaton more? Well, yesterday we saw why he doesn't play Eaton more, why he doesn't give more young players opportunities. Because when he do it and we don't win, how fun is it for someone who's that young and see the meltdown, see the criticism, not constructive criticism, like actual criticism, and some other players or managers getting life threats. Some people are referencing to terrorist attack. Like, who would want to be in that environment?
Hmm.
And what impact does that have on player welfare, manager welfare, on their
Yeah,
mental health?
and
Especially
they
when
see
you
it,
hear,
and they see it, King.
of course they
They
see it. Of
100%
course
they
they
see it.
will see it. The family members will see it. The
Yeah.
friends will see it. And then when you hear about people like Jude Bellingham coming out talking about how bad he felt after the Euros, and this is a player who's much older than Ethan, who has much more experience, who's played football in Bundesliga for Real Madrid and for England, and
Hmm.
for him, it is a struggle. Imagine someone who is the age of and less experience, like an Ethan, like a Miles Lewis Kelly, and people dare to wonder why. And I have to even say, I'm sorry, Mikel. I wanted to see Ethan more, but I can see now why we haven't seen him more because there's so many people out there where when they are angry, they cannot take the mature decision to say, you know what, I'm not going to stand in front of a fan camp today because I cannot control my emotion. These people, this is not the first time they have a meltdown. It's not the second time they have a meltdown. It's not the third time. They've done it year in, year out. The problem is that because of we have won so many games, we haven't seen this kind of reaction a lot. But because now we are not winning as much as we expect to win, we are starting to see the true colors. And then some of the kind of excuses that I've heard from these
Hmm.
people, they're not taking any accountability.
Hmm.
Accountability is not to say, oh, it was like tongue in cheek. I shouldn't have said that. No, accountability is, you know what? I'm embarrassed of what I actually said. I shouldn't have said it. I'm even going to ask AFTV to take down that video and I'm going to see how I can do better for myself in the future because say that we are fans and supporters, but where's the support from? Can we only support when we are winning? Can we only support when it's going well? Why do we expect managers and players to be loyal to this club if this is the way we are treating them when they need our support?
Hmm.
Do people not understand what the meaning of support means? Do people do not understand that in football, no one is entitled to win? Of course, we want our club to win. Of course, it's frustration when you take your time and your money and you put it into the club, but that doesn't give you a defining right to go over the board. And I think that when we keep on seeing this online, we are just destroying for ourselves. Imagine like someone like an Alexander Isak
Hmm.
gets to see some of these clips
Hmm.
yesterday. He'd
And
be
they
like,
will.
do I really want to join that toxicity of a fan base?
Hmm.
Like, is this what they're gonna do to me if I'm struggling? What if I don't score in the first 5 games? Are they gonna call me a fraud? Are they gonna say that I'm not good enough? Do I need that? Like, we are not helping ourselves as
Hmm.
fans, and we have to do better. And we have to accept that when we do wrong, it's not okay. And I'm sorry for the long rant, but you know,
I'm letting you run, mate.
yeah, and
I
I
agree.
appreciate it, but it's because of we as fans, we have to ask ourselves, what do we want? And
Yeah.
if Ethan is my kid, or
Yeah.
your nephew, or
Yeah.
someone you love,
Hmm.
is this an environment you want him to play for?
Hmm.
And if it's not,
There's
then
a
you have to
responsibility.
ask yourself.
There's a responsibility not just of the person saying it, but the publisher
Yeah,
as well.
100%. And again, like for me, I'm sorry, yeah. Over the years, I really thought that AFTV as a brand, as a company,
Yeah.
were changing. But yesterday showed me again that they haven't changed. Like they've just had more sensible people that have joined the channel. But when it comes to putting out toxicity, putting out people who are threatening other people, people who are using some of the worst situation that we've seen in this modern world, using that towards our team, and no one watches that and say that, you know what, we cannot put this stuff out. You've gone too far. For me, it tells me everything that I needed to know about them, and I will not be part of that. I will not join that channel again because for me,
Yeah.
and channel, that's not what that is. That is just
I
you making the most of terrible situation, gaining traffic, gaining tension for something that you shouldn't do.
and look, like that's I'd also, because I wanted to be fair, and I don't usually, it's not my thing to just sit here and bash AFTV. In fact, I think I've been criticised by our listeners for being somewhat defensive of AFTV
Mm,
a lot over the last couple of years, because I do think an effort was made to try and change things.
yeah,
And I don't want this show to turn into that, but I think part of yesterday's game is the discourse that followed it. And that's an important part of the discussion from today. And I think you're right. I did watch Robbie's interview where, to be fair to him, he did like defend Arteta, and there was a defense of kind of where Arsenal are at and kind of a bigger picture look. But when the stuff that's being published and the lack of accountability, I said fair play to James as well, because he did bite back at the the criticisms of a 17-year-old child that was being had on stream. But yeah, King, I think you smashed it, mate. So thank you so much for your time, and
uh,
I hope you enjoy the rest of
oh,
your Sunday, and we can wake up a little.
yeah, for sure. Thanks,
Thank
Tom,
you,
and
King.
good luck with the show. And big
Thank
up
you, man.
to all of
I'm
you.
sure we're going to need it. So yeah, we'll move forward.
All right.
Thanks, mate. Speak to you soon. Let's get on some. I'm curious to get some new faces as well on today's show, and we'll try and get as many people on as we can. Sem is up next. How do you, mate? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
It's pronounced Gem.
Chem. My
Yeah.
apologies, Chem. Thank you so much. I went with it. I guessed. I got it wrong. We try.
No worries, mate. No worries. It gets everyone.
Trust me, when I used to be a teacher and I'd have like a register in the morning for like a new class, and I'd look at it and think, I'm going to make some mistakes today. And you just have to hold your hands up and apologise. So, Chem, thank you for
No
your
worries,
time,
mate.
Tell me where your head's at.
Do you know what? I'm looking at the table and I'm seeing it's only a 6-point gap. So that's the
With the
saving
game in
grace
hand.
from yesterday.
There is a game in hand. We have to always point that out.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So it is disappointing that obviously we couldn't get what would have been obvious points for us in terms of the 3 points. But I think King absolutely smashed it with his points on the game. I would say I would agree with some of the tactical changes. They were questionable. The only thing that I can think maybe the manager is doing at the moment is rotating, because we have really suffered with players' fitness, form, and things like that. So maybe that's something that he's doing there, but obviously is trying to protect his players by giving the Ten Hag vibes, as you've called it. But yeah, I think it's more what you guys were just talking about a second ago that's taken the forefront from me. The fan reaction. It's been really, really disappointing just seeing like how nuclear people have gone in on the topic, because I think we're looking at some of the clips that you guys have mentioned, and it's really showing fan channels in a bad light. And to be honest with you, Tom, yours and Harry Simu's channels are the only ones I watch now in terms of an Arsenal perspective, because for me, I can't deal with the hyperbole and just the over the top nature of some of the other channels that we see online nowadays.
Sure.
Whereas you guys tend to bring the level-headedness, things on an even keel. So
I appreciate that. I don't want this to. I appreciate. I don't want this to turn into kind of a kind of a sides type thing. And I get that, but I do appreciate your words on it, Chair. In terms of kind of where your head's at with Arteta, because there is a lot of discourse around. You kind of thinking, is this as far as he's taken us? I remember the season that Liverpool had when they had a significant number of injuries, and I think they finished. I think they ended 4th in the season. Obviously, came back to win trophies after that as well. I mean, blips happen, like they do happen, and you do have down seasons, and you can go up and then have a bit of a lull after you invested a lot, which Arsenal have done the last 2 years. But how do you foresee kind of Arsenal's situation as is? Is it recoverable? Do you see the resources there? Is the manager still capable of getting more from this team, or are you concerned this is part of a slippery slope?
I still have confidence in the manager. I think we're still quite early into the season. January is not too far away, and I think that we're going to have to put in some work into that window, because I'm looking at that right back position. I know people will probably scoff at another defender being brought in, and I get it, but it's an area that's a problem for us. We're still in cup competitions as well. The league isn't that far away. I know Liverpool are looking like they're pretty much one hand on it already, but there's still a lot of football to be played in terms of the league season. I think I'm in the same school of thought as you on the manager, in terms of I think he's got this contract to prove himself. If he's not able to deliver, then that's probably where we would talk about what's the alternative and who do we move on to. Maybe he was or is the guy before the guy. But I would say if it's not the league this season, he needs some sort of silverware. And I think this team in its current iteration needs it as well. Because if I'm not wrong, I think the only 2 players in the squads, other than Tierney and maybe Saka and Gabriel, that have won the FA Cup under Arteta.
Yeah, I hear all the time when someone turns around to me and says Arteta's won nothing in 5 years, and I'm like, what? Yes, he has. And it's like that. I feel like sometimes people's anger or just dislike towards the manager blind them from just being, just making correct points. But
yeah,
it is frustrating we've not won a trophy in the last 4 years of a major level. And it's a frustration that obviously this season is the one season of the seasons we've been competing where Man City don't look on it, but we ourselves at the same time don't look on it. And there are reasons behind that. We've seen, obviously, still Arsenal sitting, as you pointed out at the start, 6 points behind Liverpool. There is a smaller gap between us and the teams behind us. It's worth pointing out that, there are teams like Forest now only 2 points behind Arsenal. Chelsea, of course, can open a gap up to us today with a win, over Brentford. Man City can go level with us on points if they win their game. Aston Villa are, to be fair, 5 points behind us down in 6th, but it's not like they're miles away. Brighton, I think, play today. They can go within 3 points of us. Bournemouth play today. They can go within 3 points of us as well if they were to win. So there are. It's tighter than I think the table is suggesting at the moment. And you mentioned January there. The last question I'll kind of ask you, Chem, is: are you confident the club will do the required business? And when I say required, I know that we all dream of strikers and wingers and centre-backs. Required has to also be realistic. And realistically, a striker is not going to happen in the winter because the options out there aren't going to happen for what Arsenal can do. But a forward player is definitely viable. A defender who can cover, the injuries that we're dealing with is definitely viable. So do you think that Arsenal will do what is, quote-unquote, required this winter?
Oh, that's a good question. Do I have the confidence that we'll do it? I think we will. I think particularly with the defender, that Ben White injury, I think, is a lot more impactful than we first maybe anticipated, especially with Tomiyasu's fitness issues as well. I think it's an area that is causing a lot of issues in terms of just even yesterday, moving Timber over to left back in the way that we had to in order to cycle people's minutes, even to cover at left back. So I do think a defender, and again, I know people probably don't want to hear that because we've bought a lot of defenders over the past few windows. I think that's the more likely with a wide forward or just an attacking player that maybe can play across the front three.
Yeah.
I think jury's still out at the moment. I'd like to say the club would, but I'm not sure what's realistic and what's available in January. And I think that's a bit of an issue for that one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting winter. I think it's going to be a defining part of Arsenal's season, hopefully one that they take advantage of, because I don't think they can afford not to. Chem, thank you so much for your time, mate. I really appreciate your call.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, no worries. Speak to you soon.
Cheers.
Thanks, Chem. Lovely stuff. Lovely to get plenty of opinions on today. Thato is up next for us. Hello, mate. How are you? You good? You well?
Hey, Tom. How's it going?
Not bad, mate. Not bad. Tell me how you're feeling.
Great. Oh, by the way, it's Tato.
Tato, sorry. Thank you, Tato. I will, again, apologise for me messing up names this morning. Talk to me about how you're feeling.
Problem, man. I'm actually glad I got to call you because I'm kind of sort of in a rush. I have to get ready to go out.
We could do this one quick.
Yeah,
so,
but
just give me a monologue.
Yeah. Honestly, though, I remember back in 2016. I don't think you would ever hear me say I miss Granit Xhaka, but I miss Granit Xhaka. So
the amount of times I've heard those words said since he's left is a worrying trend.
Yeah, man. But right now, I don't know how I'm feeling. I'm feeling a bit annoyed. I feel like I'm glad Arteta has like a mentality to control games, to be like defensively smart, because if you go too attacking, you risk, getting those counters. But I feel like at the same time, we should be strong enough now at the back to be like, okay, maybe we can put 2 attacking aids. We could be more adventurous with our gameplay. We can be more fast with the release of the ball when we're attacking, or because some of the decisions he makes, like he drops Havertz between the line. I don't get that. He keeps Martinelli on for too long. And for a lot of games now, I just felt like he's not offering anything on the left. Yeah. And I feel like maybe Trossard, even though he's not great either, he would definitely be more of a control player with the ball,
Yeah.
So there's just so many things I wish he would do differently. But I'm not going to be one of those guys who would be like, I'm Arteta out, because that's a big leap from, you know what I mean? Like it's just from this result only.
Yeah, because some people aren't Arteta out from this result. Like some people have been Arteta out for a lot longer and would point that out. I think if yesterday's result is what was the breaking point for you, I struggle with that a little bit, considering how dominant Arsenal were, and obviously the fact that only one team was going to win that game of any of the two, and it was going to be Arsenal. So if yesterday's the straw that broke the camel's back, I don't really see why that would be the case. I mean, I get it if you've been Arteta out for a while, but if it was yesterday's game that did it, I'm struggling with that a bit. But go on.
It's I was going to say, like, with when you were talking about the AFT videos and the remarks online, what I usually normally do after a negative result is I just tune it all out, because it's never like balanced reaction. It's never a mature reaction. It's always like quick. They want to get the word out fast. Say, oh, I was right. This player sucks, or he's not good enough, or this or that.
Yeah.
And that's just it doesn't lead to anything.
For the record, I don't seek it out. My feed feeds me it like, and it just throws it in my face. So I can't help but see it.
Same. I literally most of my timeline on YouTube, Twitter, whatever, it's mostly Arsenal stuff. So obviously I'll see it too. But I try to just I swipe away, But man, like
it's hard. It's hard. It's very hard. That I think that you summed up, your thoughts on the kind of game wise pretty well. And I think that Arsenal are just in a place where we got a quarterfinal, a cup game on midweek. For me, there's only one result there. Arsenal have to reach a semi-final of the cup. Anything other than that is going to cause. If we think things are bad now, get knocked out by Palace on Wednesday. Goodness me, Yeah.
I'll be at home too, right?
Yeah, we are at home. Yeah, it's not really. There's no
Oh,
excuse.
yeah,
There's no
we have
excuse
to.
yesterday either, really. But like
Yeah.
Wednesday there is none.
Yeah. I wish also, like, I think maybe even Sterling when they left could have worked. I don't know. I'm at a
I think
point
there's
now where I
something
wish I could
there.
just
I think there's a
him.
question there, not necessarily about like if Sterling should have played, but I think there's a question about what's actually going on with Sterling because he's not playing at all at the moment.
And he's literally getting his salary for nothing. Yeah.
He was playing, like he was coming off the bench, he was getting minutes.
Yeah.
Nothing in his performance kind of dipped or changed. So there must be something going on that we don't know about at the moment. And I'd be curious to see if anything does come out about that. If that is indeed the case. That's so. Thank you so much for your time, mate. I know you had to be on quick, so I'm gonna let you go quick. So thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom. Yes.
Thank you. Right. Lovely stuff. Peter's up next. Peter, how are you? You good, Joel?
Hey, Tom. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad, all things considered. Tell me where your head's at.
I was thinking about this lack of urgency that we've displayed yesterday. Yeah, and I was obviously very frustrated after the game yesterday, but I went to wash the dishes and it kind of helped. So you can use that as a tip if you're frustrated. Yeah, that was good therapy. But when I'm thinking about Arteta, and just to be clear, I love the guy and he's a fantastic manager, probably one of the best in the English.
You don't need to preface that because you're on here.
No, I'm just saying because I don't want to sound, I don't want to sound like somebody that's against the guy. But
for sure.
He seems to me like a very methodical person that likes to approach things with a system. And I think his brain constantly calculates things. And I think this is also something that he preaches to the team. And sometimes I believe this lack of urgency, this lack of energy comes from this belief that good things are going to come if we just stay patient. And I believe sometimes we need to stop being patient. And yesterday's games was, I think, a great example. We were not pushing hard enough. I mean, a lot of things have already been said, so lots of good takes coming from the previous callers. But I think the core problem that we are facing is sometimes we are just not crazy enough. And football is a sport, and you need to have some sort of some sense of urgency, but also some sense of just going wild and trying new things. And we just keep on trying to do the same thing over and over again. We build, our offense on the right side with Odegaard. When he's taken off, we try on the left side, and we just try the same things over and over again. It's not working. You were asking about January. I think you were asking Cem if he believes that January transfer window is going to change anything.
If we'll do what we required,
we're not.
If he thinks we'll do what we are required to do.
So I'm in the camp that believes that that's not going to happen. I think I'm not going to say that we need to forget about this season because this season is wild. I mean, if you look at the table, I mean, if I would ask you in August, would you believe that what Nottingham Forest is what they are fourth right now?
They are. No, they're fourth. Yeah, until Man City play today, they are fourth. Yeah.
Yeah, and would you believe that City would have a November like they've had?
No, of course not. And I wouldn't think that we would have had what we had either. I think it's been a very upside down season, and sometimes they happen. But you hope that you're the team that takes advantage of those. And from a Liverpool perspective, Liverpool fans at the moment, they've drawn their last two games in the league, and they've got Spurs up next. I think that's at Spurs as well. So there's a chance they drop points again. And suddenly you've got like this opening there, and teams like Arsenal and City are not taking advantage of it. But Chelsea are at the moment looking like they're taking advantage of things. They've won the last 4 games, drawing the one with Arsenal, of course. Before they've won every game since they've drawn with Arsenal, and they look good, and they should look good. Like the whole discourse around Chelsea frustrates me at times because people just go, "Well, they're in under a new manager for this season, so surely it's starting from zero." And it's like, no, of course they're not starting from zero. They spent well over £1 billion on players in the last 3 years. They're not starting from nothing, and they've got a coach that's worked at Leicester, got them promotion, plays good football, so it's worked that way for them, and now it's starting to click in terms of the team, but. It's just frustrating, I guess, that Arsenal aren't clicking at the moment. Even though, so for you, like, what's changed from last season? I suppose the last question I'll ask you is: last season, this is an Arsenal team which is ostensibly the same team with Moreno and Calafiori, who themselves have not really been present because of injury. What's changed from a team that got more wins than the Invincibles, scored more goals than the Invincibles did, and was 2 points off of winning against the side that have dominated the league for the last 7 years. What's changed? What's the difference?
That's a good question. And you probably won't like the answer because that's not an optimistic answer. I think in the heads of a lot of our players, there is a sense that we've missed our chance last year.
Okay.
And, when you're talking about professional sports, the margins are super fine. I mean, these are fractions of a percentages that make a difference. Most of these guys, whether that's Liverpool players, Arsenal players, City players, they are technically almost on the same level. So these are these super fine margins, and a lot of it comes to psychology. A lot of it comes down to capitalizing on chances. And I think that last season, the fact that we've lost that title, because we lost it, I believe it was Villa at home. I think that's when it got away.
Yeah. I mean, that is the game that lost us the title. Yeah.
Yeah, it was super frustrating, and it was Ollie Watkins, right, that killed us.
Yes, it was. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think that was something that left a burden on a lot of these guys, and yeah, I mean, it in my opinion, it's mental at this point. It's just for them to figure things out mentally, how to move forward. And I will look back to what I said about Arteta and the fact that he's a systems coach.
Yes.
I don't think system only will fix the problem. I think we would need some sort of spark, which at this point we do not have.
The word
a spark.
he used.
With Martin came back after the injury, there was a spark.
Yeah.
But it's just lasted for 4 games?
Mm-hmm.
But hey, it's December. I mean, things can happen, right?
Things can happen. We'll wait and see, I guess. But Peter, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. All right, Rob's up next. Let's get Rob on. How you doing, Rob? You good? You well?
Kia ora. Well, I wouldn't say I'm good or well, but I'm
all
doing
things considered
as good as can be expected, I guess.
Glad to hear that.
I'd like to say thank you to the people in the chat yesterday, and for you for putting out good thoughts for my situation. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all. I think everyone in the chat box showed the community spirit that we've got, of course, my thoughts always with you, my friend. Moving to football, tell me where your head's at with things from yesterday.
So I guess my head's in a slightly unusual place, but I think it's related to how my mind generally works, is to try and be a bit balanced. Obviously not a great result.
Yeah.
But in perspective of, life in general, it is just football, right? we're watching we're watching a load of millionaires kick a ball around, and when people lose their heads, I don't know. Obviously, my situation at the moment makes me feel like let's try and keep it in perspective. I mean, I think also let's try and keep it in perspective. I'm looking at the stats of the game. We had 76% ball possession. We had 13 shots to their 2. We had 5 shots on target to their 0. We dominated the game.
Yeah.
And, I would say in general, we're going to win that game 8 or 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
If people are taking their chances. But that's the story of this season. That's the story of last season. We've always been talking about the need to find clinical finishers. And, that, to me, that was the story of that game. We had so many chances. Odegaard had some, things that you would expect him to bury. Didn't feel like he played that well yesterday. But hey, someone coming off how many games was he out for? Was it 8, 10, 12, something like that? 2 months. You can expect them to be trying to get back into form. I don't know. I think I really genuinely think that we're still at a level. I think people losing their heads of, like our season's over and all of these things. The stats show that we're still at a level that we could have won that game.
Yeah. And like when we talk about like big teams sacking managers, like you think about like Man United, they sacked Ten Hag because their performances were awful. Their trajectory was downward.
Totally.
They weren't deserving to win games. Like that's not the case with Arsenal right now.
No, not at all. Not at all. And that's where you want the fan base to be calling for the manager's head, is when they're, you know, mid-table and they're not putting in the performances. I would just say that, you know, our players weren't at their best and they didn't take the chances. The concept of blaming that on Arteta, I just find totally bizarre. And one thing that really stood out for me is you know, earlier on in the season, especially when Odegaard was out, people were calling for Nwaneri to be playing from the start. I think that's you know, a fair shout. After the Champions League game, you know, everyone's calling for Lewis Skelly to be starting, and he did. And not putting either of them down. But to me, this game was evidence of why these people shouting for Nwaneri to be starting from the beginning, I wouldn't say they're wrong, but to question that certainty, because
to say it with such chest, like to say it with such vigor and like assurance that they are without question the difference between Arsenal winning a game and not, and if they start, it's going to change our season. And the fact that Arteta's not doing that is borderline for some a sackable offence. Like that's the hyperbole. So you're not bashing either of those two. You're just
not at all, because they're both great players, and I'm sure that they can grow into their roles. But you know, Skelly, we didn't see those you know, battling in against players and playing forward balls. We saw him taking the ball and laying it off to Saliba backwards so many times. I mean, I don't know how, I didn't count them, obviously. I'm not that much of a nerd, but you know, there weren't those forward passes. And when Nwaneri came on, you know, he had some good touches, but there wasn't the kind of,
he wasn't as good, even though Odegaard didn't have a good game. If we're going to talk about Nwaneri's performance, like Odegaard did more in his performance that we have criticised as not being to the level than Nwaneri did when he came on. And I think that would be a fair analysis of the performance. I liked that Nwaneri came on when he did, because I think he's been deserving of a greater period of time to have an impact on the game. I think he was let down by the manager by being brought on to replace Martin Odegaard, because if you're bringing Nwaneri on, a 17-year-old kid, to replace the captain, you're putting in, for all that Arteta said about being cautious and wanting to give him the right platform, I think he kind of hung him out to dry a little bit, to be honest, by bringing him on for Odegaard when he could have played him with him.
I mean, that almost makes my point, though, is that, you know, these people that were calling for him to be starting when Odegaard was out, and for Skelly to be starting, you know, every game because he's made a great pass, you know, there's pressure, right?
Yeah.
And 17, you know, again, no offense to these players, like that's not my point at all. If you're starting Nwaneri in crux games when your captain's out, there's so much of a difference in pressure. And again, like you say, you know, taking your captain off when it's 0-0 and bring in Nwaneri on for like 10 minutes or whatever, there's pressure. You know, and these kids, let's face it, they're kids, right?
Yeah, they're kids.
You know, to expect them to be shouldering the pressure of a team to win, you know, in fans' minds. I mean, this is the other thing that kind of blows me away, is like, before this game, people were saying we've got to win everything. And, you know, I don't know whether that's true or not, but the reality is we drew the game and Liverpool drew the game. So, okay, we're one game down in the season. So, you know, there's obviously a statistical drop of how many points we can get from now on. But the reality is we're not in any different position really in the scheme of things than we were before the game started. So I don't know. It's like the season's not over. I think we've still got a good chance, but the reality is definitely that we're not firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
You know, the team's playing well, but we're not taking our chances. And
No,
yeah, I mean, just what people have said before. I mean, I just don't think. I think Jesus now is like. I mean, where is his head at when he hasn't scored?
What's the point of bringing Jesus on when that's what he produces? Like,
and I honestly actually feel for Sterling. You know, he's gone from Chelsea where he wasn't even getting in the 57th squad, and he's you know decided that Arteta wants to bring him in on a loan because he thinks he's going to get more minutes, and we need a goal, and he's not looking. I don't know. I would definitely question some of the manager's decisions,
100%.
But I don't think you can blame the manager for us doing a 0-0 because I think it was down to the players. Like we had so many chances that we didn't take.
We did.
You can't blame.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we would. As he points out, I get frustrated at the lack of accountability in pointing out where he thinks we could have done more, been better after the game. But I agree with him that there was only one team that deserved to win the match yesterday. It wasn't Everton, but ultimately the players didn't take those opportunities when they came. But Rob, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you jumping on, of course, in the situation as well. And I'm glad that you did receive all the kind messages yesterday, and they got through.
Yeah, thank you guys. It does mean a lot because I'm a bit on my own out here, so to get this kind of connection and support online does mean a lot. And
online can be good for some things, can't it? It can be a good thing, and we've seen that. So, Rob, thank you, mate, and I'll speak to you soon, I'm sure.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate. Lovely stuff. And I'll just echo those words again. Thank you to everybody in the chat box yesterday. Obviously, Rob's going for a pretty tough time at the moment. He's a regular listener and contributor to the channel. And again, I thought it showed the, just what these spaces are about, and actually being able to use opportunities to support people and, and help people rather than tearing them down, which is sadly what so many people use these platforms for. Basher's up next. Has been very, very patient. How you doing, mate? He's laughing because he knows he has been waiting a while. How you doing, man? You good?
I'm good. Alhamdulillah. How are you, Tom?
Yeah, I'm not bad, mate.
I think that's one name you cannot go wrong with, right? Yeah.
Yes. No, it's a relatively simple one. As is Tom. Like, you know, it would take a lot for me to mess that one up. So yeah, Basher, tell me where your head's at.
I want to talk about Arteta.
Really? Why?
Yeah. And going back to what you were saying about people being Arteta out or not, I've never been an Arteta out. Okay. I remember watching Liverpool playing Man City 4 years ago and asking myself, will I ever get to see Arsenal play football like those guys and really compete with those guys? And Arteta did that over 3 years. No one can deny that. However, when we took Arteta on as our manager, there was an implied. We all knew it was his first job, so there was an implied understanding of that there's going to be a learning curve. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to get better, hopefully.
Yeah,
judging by what we've seen so far. And I don't think that it's that far-fetched or that unfathomable to ask the question whether Arteta still has more to give Arsenal or not. That does not mean that you're anti-Arteta or that it does not mean that he's done a great job so far.
Nothing wrong with asking questions. Never, ever.
And he's done a great job. But let me give you an example from what I know best, which is like a business word. When you have a company that's losing money, that's in the red, and you get someone to take this company from being in the red to starting making profits, going to the black again. It's very likely that, or not very likely, it's not by default that this guy, since he's done that, can be the guy who can take this company to compete and be amongst the top 3 companies in the market. It's not that far-fetched. It happens, and we've seen it in multiple aspects, in sports and in business and everywhere. So, is Arteta learning from his mistakes? Is he getting better? And is he getting better at the pace that we need now to go that extra one step? No one can. We've all seen us fail at the last step, at the last mile for the last 3 years. One for the top four and two for the title. I don't believe we've lost the title last year because we were competing with one of the greatest teams in the Premier League history. Yes, we were competing with one of the greatest teams in Premier League history, but we lost it because we got one game out of 1 point out of 5 games against Villa and Fulham and West Ham. Only 2 of them could have given us the title. So I think there are questions to be asked about Arteta. There's questions to be asked about what's happening behind the curtains. Is this guy getting the support he needs from management? That's also a very viable question to be asked. Is he getting the players he wants? What's going on over there? Couple that with the Edu's departure, for example. Is that related in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah.
But fact of the matter is, we've been trying to replace Xhaka, and we've failed to do so for 2 years now. We've been without a proper cover for Saka, because I claim that we could have gotten more from Saka last season and this season if he played less minutes. Still don't have a cover for Saka. We're still trying to have a proper center forward for 2 years now, and we're unable to do that. We're still trying to shove players and recreate them in roles that they were not created for.
Yeah.
These are some of the mistakes that we're still doing. Arteta has gotten better and he has improved in so many things. Rotation is one of them. But tactically, there are some questions also. The lack of plan B. We've all been asking for plan B for 3 years now. But guess what? We play Everton with the same tactic and game plan that we play Bayern Munich. That should never be the case. That should never be the case.
I'm not sure I agree entirely with that point. I think that yesterday Arsenal played with an air of dominance, and they played, by far the more attacking, intentful football. And against Bayern Munich, there was more of an element of respect for Bayern in the fact that they were going to attack us, and they did, and we had to defend astutely. And when the opportunities fell to us, we had to go on the attack ourselves. So I think there are differences between I think your analogies about kind of Arteta are to a degree correct. And I think that, he has taken us from a point where we were, just in a period of utter unknown. We didn't know what Arsenal even were when Arteta came in. And I, like you, was sitting there 4, 5, 6 years ago and beyond for the previous decade before that, looking at Man City, looking at Chelsea when they were winning titles under Conte, looking at Liverpool under Klopp and thinking, we are so far off that. We are miles from that. And Arteta's come in and with his philosophies and his principles and his decision-making has taken us to a point where we do compete with these teams, where we've not lost to any of those teams in hundreds of days, as we put that stat up on the screen a couple of weeks ago before the Man United game. Like, we've not lost to Chelsea in well over 1,000 days, not lost to Liverpool, I think, in over like 800 days in the league. We do compete with these teams. The problem is that we have is that I look at the squad and I look at the comparison to Liverpool. Like someone said there, like Arteta's got like a really expensive forward line. Well, Kai Havertz makes up 65% of the 100 million that is our front four with Ødegaard. Saka cost nothing. Martinelli was 5 million quid. Havertz was 65. Ødegaard was 32. And you look at Liverpool's front three yesterday of Salah and Diaz and Gakpo, and those three, cost them over 100 quid, just those three. Then you've got obviously Jota and Darwin Nunez. That's another 150 million, on top of that as well. Arteta needs more. He needs more, and we need more resources to be able to continue to compete at the top level.
True. More resources, and we need different profiles in our squad. Speaking of Ethan, I don't think that Nwaneri is Odegaard's replacement. I see them as two totally different players. What Odegaard has in terms of playmaking, the passing, the vision, the rhythm setting, Nwaneri does not have any of that. However, Nwaneri would have scored 4 goals that Odegaard has wasted against Monaco and in the last game against Everton, for example. I wish we could see them playing next to each other. We play with 2 attacking 8s, like Guardiola used to play. And that was the chance. You have a problem with playing from the center of the pitch with the least team in the Premier League in terms of chances created in the middle of the pitch. And we have like 57% inclination to the right side. So we have some serious issues with the squad, how it's structured. And I don't see Arteta really doing anything about it. Thank God, Rice started to play as 6 as he should.
As he should, yeah.
Yeah, he's a really good 8, but he's an amazing. He's one of the top 3 6s in the world. So let him play there, please. If you're not convinced with Mourinho, then that's on you. Then that's on you. Why did you buy him?
Well, the Mourinho ones I think is harsh. Like, I don't think Mourinho is a world-class player. I think Mourinho's a good player, but I think ultimately has been hampered this season by the issues that he's faced from a fitness point. And I do think he gets some degree of a pass because of that.
Yeah, I agree. And he'd also he would be, we would see him better if we understand what's he good at. So if we look at the Spanish team, Merino is the understudy of Fabian Ruiz. Fabian Ruiz is there as Odegaard. And Merino is the more conservative, less creative version of him. So he's his understudy. So again, can we do something about this in Jan? Is Arteta going to really look for a genuine plan B? However, we don't have a single overlapping right back in the squad.
Well, we do. He was on the bench yesterday, actually, Kieran Tierney, and he wasn't brought on.
Yeah, we don't have a dribbler, a line breaker in the squad.
Yeah,
we don't have a proper 9. We have big gaps, so hopefully we can.
You know what I always find so funny, Basha, though, about these comments is that you're right. You're absolutely right. We don't have this. We don't have that. We need this. We need that. And despite all that, Arteta's taken us to where we are without all of that. So where's the line then? Because as I say on this show, you can't have both. We can't be saying that we need more from the manager, or the manager needs to do more, or maybe he's not good enough, or this is his ceiling, and at the same time be saying this guy's not good enough, we don't have this, we don't have that. Because if we have been able to compete with City and be up there for the last 2 years, despite not having all these things that you and me agree that we don't have, do you see where that kind of meshes together and it can't exist?
Yes, I see. I get you. I totally get what you're saying. However, those gaps in the squad, I hold them accountable for. The gaps in the profiles and the gaps in the squad, I hold him, and whoever is within that team that makes those decisions, there is a certain sense of accountability over there.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Asha, it's always a pleasure to catch up. It's been a while. Nice to see you again.
Likewise.
And enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
You too.
Thank you, mate. Lovely stuff. Let's put Benny out of his misery because he looks like he's about to fall asleep. How you doing, Benny? Good, you well?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, mate. I sense that the background is not your actual home.
No, this is a virtual background.
It's because I've used that background a million times.
Yeah, look at it. My home is really nice.
I love the piano, mate. It's beautiful.
Exactly. I have everything in my home, but no, this is one of those like virtual screen thingies where you want to hide that you have like shit ton of rubbish in the back.
No worries, man. Tell me where your head's at.
So, like I think a lot of people have made really good points. I really like that there's people have taken some time to kind of think about what they are saying, or there's no reactionary stuff. I guess, to be fair, if you maybe had done this thing after the game, you probably have like people like
that's why I don't.
like going and yeah, like so.
That's why I give people a night to sleep on things.
This is like therapy. I think for me, I after the Fulham game, I was a bit like that. Then I think I just had a bit of acceptance. I guess some of my points, what I would say is that for people saying that Arteta didn't make the substitutions, I think you made that point. To be fair, he had all his attacking players on the pitch. I don't think he did it. All the attacking players he had available to him that he chose for the day he had them on the pitch. I think one of the things was that he didn't change the system. So he had like a like-for-like replacement, even putting Partey at right back, where I would have, I'm not a manager, but I would have probably flooded the midfield a bit more with more players or done something a bit different.
Mistake.
He like you already pointed out, I think he could have definitely tried Odegaard and Wanyeri together instead of having like-for-like replacements. So I thought that was, but in hindsight, you'd say that was not good. But to be fair, he did have all his attacking players on. I don't know why Jorginho was on the pitch when we needed a bit more urgency. But like I said, we had all the attacking players on. The first half was really dull. And I've seen this quite a bit.
It was actually better though than the second. We created better chances in the first half than we did in the second half.
We did, but it's like every time, and it's the same for the Fulham game. We seem to have all this urgency when we feel the game is slipping away. And in the first half, it's just like, okay, we're going to play the methodical Arsenal. We're going to keep the ball where we have loads of possession. But in terms of, exactly. And I think it's becoming a theme from the Sporting match, especially the Sporting. Is it Sporting that we played with? Where they had a mid block, and these teams, I think, against the top teams, and also the Champions League matches where teams attack us, we are fine. The problem is when there are teams that come to Arsenal and they know they can't, or we play them away and they know they can't win. They set up a mid block, and then it seems that we run out of ideas. We cross the ball. These teams, most of the times, they are very good with like crosses because they are struggling in the relegation zone, and we kind of need to come up with different ideas on the in this game. And I think this is one of the things we are struggling with. This is going to be an unpopular opinion. Please don't hurt me, but I'm going to criticize Saka a bit here.
Oh, wow.
He had a good game.
That's a weird way to start a criticism.
But he's our star boy. And he wants to kind of go on the echelons of this world class. He wants people, I think people are starting to refer to him as world class because he's having an assist. And that's where we get the gold from. So just like a Lionel Messi or a Mo Salah, he's going to get the attention. And when the ball, that is why the players passing the ball, because we know this is an outlet or where we're going to score goals. And unfortunately, the crux is on him to come up with these ideas. Just like how Lionel Messi in his heyday, when Barcelona needed, were run out of ideas, they gave Lionel Messi the ball and he had to create something by himself. And that's what a world-class player does.
Sure.
So just to get my point, it's not like I'm saying he had a bad game. I'm not saying, but if he wants to be our world-class player in Arsenal,
then he has to show up with something spectacular.
Exactly. It's just, and I'm not saying he's not a bad player.
No, it's a harsh point, but I get the sentiment. Like I get the sentiment of it. Like I remember the Man United game where Saka pops up on the edge of the box and smashing the ball from 25 yards. Like, that's great. And we do need more from him from that. I think that's on the manager, though. I don't think it's on Saka.
No, it is on the manager, but you get my point.
Because I think he's playing a system that doesn't invoke flair or I mean, there was a question actually got asked. He said, let me find the comment. He says, I'm very disappointed when you do what we've done today against them. You have to win the game, but at the end, this is football. It's the hardest thing. Those last 20, 25 meters to do what we have to do. Credit to them as well, how the block shots, Jordan Pickford for the saves he's made and the way they defend, the desire that they have to defend with. But honestly, it's difficult to ask something else to the team. Individually, can we do things a little bit better? and deliver more quality and deliver the magic moment. In that case, that is necessarily yes, but it's something that's not easy. He was then asked if you can coach those magic moments, and he said that's difficult. At the end, you need the spark and you need to be precise. I mean, we had the chances. This could have been 2 or 3-0 and nobody's talking about it. The reality is it's 0-0 and they're not going to talk about all the incredible things that the team did in the game. I mean, certainly it's not energy. When I see the team track back, it's unbelievable. Every 3 days, 70 meters, all the team is going there. So very difficult to ask them something else because they want it. Now, it's all well and good saying like you can't coach those magic moments, but I think that he's drilled in a system that's so rigid and so systematic that it, in a way, it kind of it doesn't give, when a player's in a position where they can try a moment of flair, their instinct in the way they've been coached is to play the pass, is to find the next ball. And when you get that chance to play a player in, it rarely leads to kind of something other than that West Ham goal we scored, when Trossard scored that brilliant, beautiful passing move. That's been a rarity, really, this season. We've not done that type of thing all that often. And in the same way, we've not generally created like a big moment. And he got frustrated when he was asked questions about the fact he said, we've not scored an open play in the Premier League in the last 3 games. And he got a little bit agitated by that. And it's like, I know why you're agitated, because all the discourses around Arsenal and set pieces. And the reason why we want to be good at set pieces, because as you say, when we come up against teams that want to sit in a low block and have no intention of attacking, set pieces are a really good way of getting a goal and getting a result in those types of games. But at the same time, because we're so systematic, it has coached in a way the flair and the invention and the imaginative, crazy goals that sometimes top teams like Man City, like De Bruyne and Haaland can do. Exactly. It coaches it out of them.
Yeah, I'm already getting flamed by the chat because they think I've like touched the star boy and everybody is like now coming.
I got the point. I got what you were trying to say.
Yeah, the point is not to really the criticism. It's more like if we have this if we have a world class player, the expectations is. But then you are right about the kind of the system. We are kind of drilled into the system. Another point. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to talk about it, and people have mentioned it, but I still think he's got so lightly Martinelli. Martinelli was playing an almost 40-year-old Ashley Young yesterday,
didn't test
and got pocketed. Like I'm 39, and my legs are dying, and literally. And I'm just thinking, how good can Ashley Young be? I know he's like a peak fitness, he's still a Premiership player, but come on, Martinelli.
Yeah, you have to beat him.
You can't rip through him one time. It's getting embarrassing now. It's just getting embarrassing. Like I don't know what more we can do to defend or say to defend Martinelli, on kind of gave him a run of games to kind of play him into form, but it's like you really Ashley Young, come on, like Martinelli. This I think in the transfer window in January we need to kind of looking at somebody that can come in and compete with Trossard and Martinelli, because it's just not good enough. No, it's just not good. Like Arteta can't get Martinelli to dribble through Ashley Young. He puts the players, and the expectation is that.
Yeah, exactly. He can't kick the ball himself. Like he can't move the players on the pitch. They have to deliver. Sorry, they have to deliver, and they have to be able to. They have to be able to perform. Like this is what I said. We can have all of our complaints about Arteta and the system. At the end of the day, the system created a game yesterday that we should win. Like what we did yesterday, we should be winning.
Exactly. Sorry, Tom. Sorry, just to cut you. But to be fair to Arteta, because and this is one of I really can't call for Arteta out, because that team there that he presented on the first half is good enough to beat Everton.
Yeah,
like man for man.
It was at Fulham. Like we should have beaten Fulham. Like,
but the problem is that some of the players are just, I don't know what's going on. Like he's trusting some of these players too much, and they're letting him down time and time again, because and everybody sees it, and this has become obvious. Like players like Martinelli, like Trossard, like Jesus, honestly, they are supposed to be Arsenal players. We're supposed to be going for a title.
Yeah.
These
It's the
players
senior figures are really
Exactly.
letting this team down. Yeah,
They are not-
Jesus, Trossard, Martinelli less so because he's not a senior figure, but he's been here a long time now. You know, he's of an age where and of an experience where he should be delivering more, and he should have developed more, especially in the final third, than he has done, and that's not happened. And that's why if Arsenal goes to the market and add a winger, you know, it could be for that left-hand side. Martinelli's future could be in trouble.
And
Benny,
then,
thank you so much for your time.
One more point. I know.
Very quick, go on. Got a lot of people waiting.
Yeah, there are a lot of people waiting. I know because I was waiting for a long time. But, the fan channels, yeah, the spicy clips are going to go viral. It is what it is now, social media age. But I will kind of point out that we are paying some of the highest ticket prices in the country, and the club is milking because I'm from London and I get the notifications from Arsenal, the Arsenal.com. They are milking us on merchandise. They seem to have a new.
You don't have to buy it.
Yeah, you don't have to buy it, but like it's presented to the fans. The club is making money.
Benny, I hear what you're saying. I'm going to save you a little bit. I don't think Arsenal, no matter what ticket price they put, no matter how much merchandise they sell, can justify some of the things that were said yesterday.
No.
I want to make that point clear because I think people will interpret what you're saying as making excuses.
No, you can't just go off on the players or like threaten people or call people terrorists or stuff. But fans should be allowed to make their vent their frustrations.
Of course,
they go and pay almost more than 100 euros. I say 100 pounds for a ticket. And they get the quality is just not there, and the players are not trying hard enough. But I do agree. Yes, please, no.
I wanted to save you a bit there because I was worried that it was going to fall into a trap.
You shouldn't be like abusive to anybody.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
if a player is not good enough, he's not good enough. It doesn't give you the right to like threaten.
I don't think that any high ticket price or any amount of merchandise has come out is ever stopping anyone saying, you know, what they think. I think we've had a lot of very critical opinions here, which is typically a platform that's relatively optimistic. So if it's here, I think that, you know, and the reason why we've seen such extreme views is because people are free to say, you know, what they want. As I said, it's not about censoring people. It's not about curbing freedom of speech. It's about being, you know, conscious and responsible for what you say. Yeah, exactly. Benny, thank you so much for your time, mate. I appreciate your patience as well. Thank you, pal. Lovely stuff. Harish is up next. Camera, Harish. Oh, there he is. Take yourself off mute. There we go. How you doing, man? You good? You well?
Yeah, I'm good, Tom. How are you?
Good stuff. Not bad, mate. Not bad. Tell me where your head's at, man.
Bit disappointed, but that's natural, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's probably natural. Where are you at with kind of, you've heard a lot of what other people have said. So where's your head at regarding kind of Arteta, about where Arsenal are at? Can you make sense of what's happening? Tell me.
Yeah, sure. So my feeling is whenever you face any situation, not just in football, but any situation in life, you just have to take a deep breath and just be calm at every perspective. So now coming to footballing sense of coming to football of Arsenal, coming to present situation, you should always look at the football in three perspectives: the past, the present, and the future. Point number one, going back to the past. I don't want to go to the Wenger days, or I don't want to speak about those days. Going to the past, when I mean past, the summer transfer window of this season. So the summer transfer window of this season, I would say, did not help us go further. When it stabilized a bit, in a sense, like we got Calafiori, we got Merino, and we got Raheem Sterling. So we were 2 points away from City last season. I think there is a sense that I got a sense that we focused on those 2 points, plugging those 2 points, but we didn't focus in a sense that we have to get 100 points this season. I got a sense that we focused on plugging those two points alone, not focusing on ourselves raising the floor and also raising the ceiling. Merino raises the floor of the team, but doesn't raise the ceiling of our team.
Yeah,
and And you were right in saying use facts when you speak, and be calm and use facts. The fact was Arteta himself has told we need certain spark in front and in up front. It's not. I mean, I'm not against Raheem Sterling. He's a great guy. He has done so many. I mean, he played so many great games. But I don't think Raheem Sterling at this point in his career is that spark we need to push our ceiling up front.
What I would say, first of all, I think you made an excellent point. I think on the focusing of the 2-point gap rather than getting as many points as feasibly possible. I think it's a really good point. I think that the summer, the signings that we made were with the intention of raising the ceiling, because if we look at our left-hand side last season, that was our weakest area. You know, everything we were doing came down the right. We had Saka, we had Odegaard, we had Ben White that were producing really good performances. The left-hand side, you either had Trossard or Martinelli. There were question marks about them. Trossard had a really good season, had 17 goals last season. You know, was I think our third or fourth highest top scorer. Martinelli didn't have a very good season. You had Rice playing left 8, which some people think is his best role. I personally think 6 is his best role, and I think we needed to find somebody to play left 8. We found that player. They then got injured at the start of the season. We were missing for a really long time, and I think that's affected Mikel Merino's performances, you know, moving forward. I don't think he was that bad yesterday. I just think didn't think he was good. And obviously the left-back position, we brought in Calafiori, who was, in the games that we've seen of him, really good. Every game that he has played, he's won every single game besides 2. Those 2 games that we didn't win are away to Manchester City, where he scored, and Bournemouth, where we went down to 10 men after 30 minutes. So I think there was an intention to raise the ceiling that has been ripped away from us. And I also think there is a circumstantial reason behind the Sterling deal, is that I think that deal showed you that they wanted to bring in a forward, but by the time Nketiah was sold and Ramsdale was sold and we brought in 50-odd million quid on deadline day, the players that we could invest that money in, you know, instead weren't available. So they just panicked and they went and got Sterling on loan. Now in January, we have no excuses, Harish. That we absolutely in January have to go in, attack that window and bring in an attacking player.
Correct. So that's my past. So that's my perspective on the past.
Sure.
Now get to present. So now we can't dwell on the past, but we can take learnings from the past. And we can't look forward to future and see where we get that player, we get this player. But right, yes, we have to plan for the future. That's obvious. We have to plan for the future. But right now we are on the present. What can we do in the present? So the team is facing some issues when facing a mid block. So the Porto games last season, the Fulham games last season, both the Fulham games last season. Bayern Munich also played a mid block. If you see Bayern also.
The Emirates, they did, yeah.
Correct. So it has faced these issues. So what do we do as a team to address this in present? So one solution I have been thinking, and one solution I don't think Arteta has put in place or tried it, which I would like you to ask Arteta when you have time, when you face a question. Move Odegaard from right side of the midfield to left side of the midfield. I know in the comment section they'll come at me and saying it breaks the Saka.
Don't worry about that, mate. Stick with your opinion. Go on.
I know it comes with a suggestion that it breaks the link up between Saka and Odegaard.
Yeah.
But it breaks the link up between Saka and Odegaard for the good of the game and for the long run. In long run, it helps us. So if you look at our best midfield right now, I know Merino is just come in and he needs time. I agree with he has setback with his injury. But if a game is going to be tomorrow, our best midfield is Thomas Partey, Declan Rice, and Odegaard. So Rice
there's a Champions League final. That's probably the midfield you go with. Yeah.
Correct. So when you think that's our best midfield, and within those midfield, what are the solutions we can offer? I would say play Rice as a right-sided midfielder and play Odegaard as a left-sided midfielder. So that will naturally give verticality. Playing a left midfielder on the left-hand side, Odegaard. Do you remember that goal Havertz has scored against Chelsea when we had 5-0, when we won 5-0 up? Odegaard had that pass.
Yeah.
Correct. So that will give so much verticality. And also we should remember Rice is a dead ball taker. Dead ball free kick taker or the corner kick taker. So he has a good delivery in him as well. So the moment you move Odegaard to the left midfield and Rice plays as a right-sided midfield, one, it improves marginally, drastically. I would think so. Two, it will give a natural overlap. So remember, just imagine if Saka is cutting inside and Rice on the overlap. Rice doesn't have to take another touch which Odegaard has to take because he's left-footed. Rice can whip in the ball at his first touch. Natural overlap. The third advantage we can get is half space crossing from the left, half space crossing from the right half space and the left half space to the back post. Again, imagine the scenario where Saka giving the ball to Rice and Rice whipping it in the back post on the first touch. So that's one solution I can think of when you're facing these mid blocks. Or when you're facing the present situation, how can you improve the creativity? And playing Martin Odegaard on the left midfield, it also improves Kai Havertz. And we know, we are quick to criticize Kai Havertz or Martinelli, but when we see the games, Havertz makes so many runs. Havertz makes runs behind. Havertz makes runs. Havertz comes short for the ball. Havertz makes.
He worked really hard yesterday. I've seen people criticize performance. He created a lot of knockdowns of players that weren't taken yesterday.
Correct. So, and when Havertz makes those runs, and his best run, in my opinion, is moving from left half space to right half space. And imagine him making that run and Odegaard finding him. So I think this is the one solutions we can find in a present situation.
Harish, you know why I like calls like this is because, as you say, it's all well and good having moans and complaints and pointing out what you think is wrong, but I think you've offered a very well articulated potential solution. You see teams play against Arsenal, and the wingers swap flanks, wingers swap sides. If they're not having a joy, if Salah's not having joy against one player, sometimes I've seen Salah swap to the other side. I've never seen Saka and Mane do that. I've never seen Arsenal swap wingers. I've never seen the midfielders necessarily change sides. And you're right to bring up that Odegaard moment at Chelsea when we created the chance that should have won us the game, because Odegaard was in the left half space playing the ball to Saliba, who then crossed the ball for Trossard's that ultimately should have probably been left for Havertz. So it's a really good example of Odegaard in that left half space. Harish, I'm only moving on because I'm running out of time, but thank you so much for your call. Really well articulated and put together, and I hope it educates people. Thank you, mate. Take care, man. Fantastic. What a really, really good call. Mike's up next. How you doing, Mike? Good, well. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too, Tom.
Oh, I can't hear. Why can't I hear for some reason? I can't hear, Mike. Take yourself off mute. You're off mute on StreamYard. I think it's the microphone. Mike, if you go into the settings bit, you can see where the microphone's being detected. I'll go to the next caller and I'll bring you back in afterwards when you sort it out, okay? I'll get Mike's microphone sorted. Anthony with an H is going to be up next. Then Anthony without a H will be after if Mike's not sorted out his thing. So with a H, take yourself off mute, Anthony, on your video. There we go. Lovely stuff. How you doing, mate? You good, Joel?
I'm good. How are you, Tom?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. I'm sensing you're not.
Where to begin? I'll just say that I don't condone the comments that I saw yesterday online. Totally disgusting. Some key figures who you pointed out, and I'm not going to name the rest. It was disgusting yesterday. I can sense.
And for the record, I think we should put this out, Anthony. Like, you've come on our phone-in shows before and been pretty critical of Arteta, and we've had our own disagreements. And the fact that you've opened up the show by highlighting that, I think in itself is quite telling.
Yeah, I used to watch AFTV. I've met Robbie Lyle once at a prostate cancer event a couple of years ago, and I think he's a nice dude, Bob. Accountability needs to be taken in regards to what lead judges said going forward. And then there's another person who I'm not going to mention. I think everyone knows who it was that mentioned something else yesterday.
We all know.
Inexcusable going forward. I can sense the fans' frustration. there was a lack of urgency in the first half. Are we confident in going into the game again on Wednesday? I'm not too sure. There's a fundamental issue with this squad, and when I say that, I mean it's like it's running out of ideas. And again, from listening from the last caller and from what you're saying, Martinelli and Saka, they won't switch wings. Don't know why that is. Even
it's very rigid.
Yeah, it's like there's no plan B. Now, we all know how Everton are. Everton are going to have 10 men behind the ball. They're going to come to Emirates, get a point. And I think that's how it is for the last couple of games. Even the Monaco game, I wasn't impressed. The team, the selection that we put out, minus the injuries, I wasn't impressed. I was just like, first half, I was just like shaking my head, like, really, what am I watching here? If I was Sterling, I would go to Mikel Arteta's office on Monday and say, get me back to Chelsea, because when you know that your exporting director said that he was never in the plans, that would have made you think that really, if I wasn't in the plans, why are you signing me for on deadline day? I think fundamentally it's gone wrong. I think
why
Sterling,
did we? I'll ask you the question, Anthony. Why do you think they did?
Because they wanted to get Nico Williams, and again, I've been saying it for time and time again. Arsenal put all the eggs in one basket with Nico Williams. You know that he was never going to come to Arsenal. He wanted Barcelona. There was other wingers out there that we could have got, and because we couldn't get any other wingers, depending on if it's.
I'm going to ask you now.
Yeah, I know.
Who are they?
Look, again, we could have got Pedro Neto, and I was a big advocate for him. He went to Chelsea.
Sure.
People are saying to me, when I was fuming when I saw Chelsea. So I was literally fuming. People are saying, Anthony, why are you crying on Spaces? I was like, no, it's not a case of crying. You see what he's doing at Chelsea. He would be a difference maker. On his day, when he's fit, we know he's got injury problems. We know he's got injury issues. However, if he's able to be managed properly, he would have been another solution. Again, there was the guy from Belgium. There was the guy from Belgium who's gone to RB Leipzig. He's another winger.
Bender. Noosa, the Norwegian.
Yeah, he was another one that.
You know that Neto's got less goals and assists in the Premier League than Martinelli at the moment, though, right?
Yeah, I know, but again, Martinelli's been struggling for the past 2 years, and whether it's a confidence thing or he needs players around him. Like when Granit Xhaka was there, he was flourishing. Granit Xhaka's gone. Yeah. He hasn't done nothing for the past 2 seasons. I'm sorry, but this kid has regressed under this manager. Now, again, is it the case? Is it the manager's fault?
Yeah.
Is it a case that, all these ex-players coming out and saying, when it was Mikel Arteta at City, he was, helping us to be the players that they are. Now, again, is it the manager's fault? Is it the players' fault? Is there something fundamentally that we don't know what's going on behind closed doors? Because we only see glimpses of what happens in training, but we don't see the full picture, the full scenario going forward. So again, when I talk about those players, it could be something different. Neto, he could give us something different. If Trossard's not performing, Martinelli's not performing, you bring on Sterling. Again, going back to the Sterling issue, if he didn't want Sterling, why sign him in the first place? He didn't want him. Eddie made it clear that he was never in our plans. If I was Sterling, I'll just hand back my thing and say, I'll terminate my loan, go back to Chelsea, because he's not getting played. Unless he's going to be playing on Wednesday, I can't see it happening. But again, I'm not going to deviate away from that. It's frustrating. Yeah. It is frustrating to see that this team is regressed. Like, we make it harder for ourselves. When we need to win games, Liverpool slipped up twice. For the past 2 weeks, they slipped up. And what have we done? We've made it harder for ourselves. We haven't capitalised. And again,
we could be 2 points behind them with one game in hand right now. If we'd have beaten Fulham, beaten Everton, we'd be 2 points behind them, played one game more.
Exactly. And the worst thing is, people were disrespecting Chelsea last season. I said, Chelsea will click. Chelsea are taking more advantage than we are. We're the ones supposed to be challenging. But again, it goes back to the fact that Chelsea have done what they've done. they are now starting to click. They haven't even got out of second gear yet, but they're winning games they need to. And again, we've had this issue time and time again. When Arsenal are supposed to capitalize on games going forward, they don't want to capitalize on games going forward. They make things difficult for themselves. Fans get frustrated, and then you on the Arteta out, Arteta in, sack the manager. Eddie's gone now. Again, there's conspiracy theory. Did Eddie see what was coming and he decided, let me jump ship now? Again, that's another story here nor there. But something has to give. Am I confident come next month we're going to sign players? No. You bought Sterling. You got Sterling on loan. You didn't play him, so. Do I have confidence in this manager? And the way he's signing right now, he's coming across like Jose Mourinho, stubborn and arrogant. And you've got no right to be. You haven't won anything besides the FA Cup to be stubborn and arrogant. From listening to what he said after the game, like, I'm being deadly serious. It's got to a point that you can defend this manager for so long, but we see things that like you can't see. You've given. Some of these players do not deserve to be here. Like Granit Xhaka said, if the badge is too heavy, leave this football club. If it's too heavy, leave this football club. If you're not going to pull up your socks and, make it count when we need to, you guys want to win the title. And I was listening to one guy saying that, it's a mental issue from the past 2 seasons when they lost that. I don't think it is. I don't think these guys are good enough to win the title. I'm sorry to say. I'll be brutally honest. We as Arsenal fans, we give credit.
Just quickly. Yeah. This is why I always bring up the point about Arteta. Is because when we say things like, "I don't believe this squad is good enough to win the league," and yet he's been able to take them this close to it. That's why I still am not convinced that swapping him out is the right thing. I think he needs to be given more. Like, people talk about the fact that we've spent £700 million or £800 million and they use that as some kind of stick to beat Arteta with. The reality is that Liverpool have a more expensive team. Man City have a more expensive team. Chelsea have a more expensive team. We need more. We need to be spending and delivering more in the market. In the summer, it wasn't there for us.
But okay, I'm gonna go. No, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Right, I've known you for a while on here, and we've been talking. And be honest with me, Tom. We've only spent besides Jesus, 65 million on the striker, Kai Havertz, but he was on a striker. He was a midfielder. Sure. He's got more defenders than more goalkeepers than any other manager that we've had. Can you honestly say that we can go out and say if we had an opportunity to sign an Isaac or a Gokres, he would do it? This manager is so stubborn. He's continuing to rely on Jesus. Jesus, I'm sorry, you were good when you came in, but we've moved past you. Since you've had your knee injury, you've been a shadow of your former self. He is not there. The Fulham game is a prime example. How can you hesitate? How can you hesitate?
When would he have signed either of those two, though? Like, I agree with asking the question, and my honest reply is that I looked at the fact that before Arteta arrived, for more than a decade, Arsenal hadn't replaced Patrick Vieira. For more than half a decade plus, we hadn't replaced Robin van Persie. Like, as soon as Arteta came into the club, and we look at the players that we were bringing in, like Jesus, if we're honest, prior to his knee injury, Jesus was excellent. Prior to his knee injury. And it looked like it was a really good signing that we'd made at the time. And when he first came in, his first summer window, he brings in a centre-half in Gabriel, who's risen to be one of, if not the best centre-half of the last season and a half in the league. And to that point, another player that Arsenal had needed for well over 10 years. He brought in Thomas Partey in midfield, finally brought in a midfielder that looked like, yes, we finally replaced Patrick Vieira in Arsenal's midfield. We go into a window, and then can Arsenal actually compete with Manchester City for a signing? And if we want to go and compete with them, we're going to have to try and beat them to some of their targets. We go and spend £105 million on Declan Rice and bring that player in. On top of that, you go out and sign Kai Havertz, which is a signing that at the time, definitely a risk. And it almost felt like it was going to be potentially a signing he could even fall on his sword. Now, I think Kai Havertz has delivered more than what people were expecting of him, but it's not enough if Arsenal want to go and win the league. And that's why the next major signing that we have to make, with the opportunity when it's available to us, is a striker. I don't see that having been there in last summer, personally. to what I'm understanding of the financial availability that we had then. 2025 for Arsenal, as I have said and maintained for a long time, and I'm willing to fall on my sword on this, has always been for me a summer that's been targeted for a much bigger spend on a very key position like centre forward. Arteta told us on the tour in America that there was no expectation that Arsenal were going to do a Declan Rice deal. That didn't mean that he didn't want to. If Arteta had the opportunity to go and add another Declan Rice level player to our team, I have confidence that he would have done, because I've seen him do it several times during his tenure. I think that when the opportunity presents itself, he will get them. I agree with you. He can be stubborn. He can definitely be arrogant. He can definitely be, set in his ways about things. But I think that he has shown a ruthlessness with members of this squad at times. We've seen him do it with players that fans like. Kieran Tierney, obviously, we've seen him be ruthless with, who looked like he was going to be Arsenal's captain, at one point. And I think the left-hand side has progressed. It's still an area of weakness that we're trying to address. And in the summer, again, we tried to address it. We spent 40 million plus quid on Ricardo Calafiori. Sadly, has been missing for us quite a lot. We spent 30 million plus quid on Mikel Moreno, who, was really and is a really good player, but again, has suffered with these injuries that have stunted his progression and transition into this team. And we're looking potentially, the Trossard signing in itself was a ruthless bit of business, because he recognised that Martinelli not delivering, brings in Trossard, who this season not been great. Last season scored 17 goals for us last year.
Majority of them was off the bench, though, and that's the thing. Is like from season to this season, again, Martinelli, yes, he's gone backwards. We don't know why. Is it a confidence thing? Is it that he needs to play in a certain system? Because if you look at the game yesterday, predominantly we're trying on the right hand side. As soon as Odegaard came off Ranieri came, we tried on the left hand side, and what happened is just like, yeah, you bring in a man who's got bags of experience, but you don't want to play him. Why did you sign him in the first place if you are not going to bring him in? Again, I understand what you're saying. And again, the summer, yes, it's all good in hindsight to say, will this team go up? But with his stubbornness and the arrogance of him, is he going to finally let Jesus go part ways with Jesus like he did?
If he doesn't, he's mad. I agree with you. He's mad if he doesn't.
Again, this is the thing where I have my reservations. Is that Gokris is going to have so many players, so many teams looking at him. Bayern Munich, Barcelona, either PSG. There's going to be several teams, even Man United, and I think United have got the edge because of his previous manager. So it could be a possibility he could go there. Arsenal going to spend 120 million on Isak. If we don't get Gokris, I would take Isak or Sesko. I'm not too sure.
I'm not having Sesko. I'm not having Sesko. I'm just not. He doesn't improve the forward position. He could do in the future, but he doesn't now, and we need now.
Well, again, with Isak now, again, it goes back to the point: are we going to break the transfer market in the summer to get Isak if we don't get Gokris? I don't know. Can the board deliver? Can the board do that? Are these owners going to back him? You said that he needs more. I don't trust this manager to say, yes, go out and get me a striker. He is too stubborn and set in his ways to prove that Kai Havertz and Jesus, and because we share the goals around the whole team, that's going to get us success. I'm going to say it to everyone. We scored X amount of goals, but that still never won us nothing last season. And then you want I see where the Arsenal fans are coming from, the frustration. When we needed is the frustration. I see it. Like I said, I don't condone none of the comments that were made yesterday, but I can understand the fans' level of frustration that we needed a winger, we needed a striker. The striker, okay, Sesko didn't want to come because he had reservations about him starting over Kai Havertz. That type of mentality, I don't want at this football club. If you've got reservations because of another striker, you're not the guy for me. Move along. We find someone else in the summer. January transfer, we have an opportunity to get a winger. Am I confident? If you can get a man from Chelsea, don't play him. I don't have that confidence in him. But again, we just have to wait and see. But something needs to change going forward in terms of what's happening with this club, because we cannot be dropping points when other teams are slipping up, and we do this time and time again. And it's just like it's a cycle.
Did we deserve to win the game yesterday?
We deserve to win the game, but we're not ruthless in front.
Did we deserve to win it at Fulham? Come on, man. Think about the chances we created. Like, Partey should have scored his header. Like, we should have been up.
We did, but again, it goes back to that point. if you're not taking your chance, if you're not ruthless in front of goals, prepared to what happens. If Fulham win, I'll be said, oh, well, we didn't take our chances. You know what I'm saying? We have to take our chances. That's the difference between us, Liverpool, Chelsea, and I'm just giving an example. Liverpool, yes, you say they've been struggling, but Liverpool have been lucky. Would Chelsea finish their chance against Fulham and against Everton? Yes, they would. If they have the opportunity, they would do. But with us, we always seem to want to pass it around, this flamboyant style of football. Just roof the ball in the back of the net. What is so hard about doing that?
if we had the answers to that, Anthony, we're winning the Champions League now, and I hope we do. I'm only wrapping this up because I'm conscious of time, mate. But thank you for being patient and for sharing your words. Always a pleasure.
Cheers.
Thank you, pal. Right, let's see if Mike sorted his mic. Has Mike sorted his mic? Let's check on Mike now.
How's that?
The mic, Mike?
How's that? Can you hear me?
No, still can't hear you. Right,
ridiculous.
What I'll do is I'll go to the next caller, Mike. Go onto your phone, use the link, copy the link, and go onto your phone and see if that. Unless you're already on your phone, maybe you are. I don't know, but that's my next suggestion. Right, let's get Anthony without a H on next. How you doing, mate? You good, Joel?
Not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, thank you for your patience, mate. Very much appreciate it. Tell me where your head's at, man.
I want to start with talking about a little bit about the AFTV stuff.
Okay.
I don't really watch it at the moment. I used to watch
Neither
it
do
when
I.
it
Didn't
first
stop me
came
from
out.
seeing it though.
yeah, you still see it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop you.
Okay.
We all kind of know where our fan base is in terms of we have a lot of baggage. So we haven't won for 20 years.
Sure.
So Arteta gets the baggage from Wenger days, Emery days. He's going to get all that baggage of them not doing well, and we need to win something. So it's not just the 4 years that he hasn't won anything. It's the 20 years that we haven't won a Premier League. So fans are very irate and itching to share their opinions, and it's normally not very rational. So I try to stay away from that and just take a deep breath and then try and think of where are we as a team?
Yeah.
And
what did you
we
come
have a
up
young
with?
manager. And this whole project's gonna be where he's learning on the job.
We're 5 years in though now, Anthony, aren't we? Like, I'll be very honest. I really don't like the learning on the job bit.
Why?
Because when you have, as a coach, taken us to where we are now from where we were when he took over.
Yeah, and he's improved every year to me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So learning doesn't stop.
No, I get that. But whenever those words are said, it makes me feel like we're talking about a guy that's like that almost gets extra protection, if that makes sense. Like, okay. I think after 5 years in the job, I'm kind of like assessing him on everything that he's doing. I'm not putting an edge. In the first 2-3 years, I was like, first job, learning, experience. But now he's taken you to a position where you're an established title challenger. I think you got to look at him on his merit. Like, and I think that you can't give him that. You can't give him that slack just because this is his first job. Because if you've taken Arsenal to this level, you've got to be pretty darn good anyway. Like, it doesn't matter how long you've been in the job. This is where you've taken us. So we're here now. Let's judge him on being here, on being a top, which I think he is a top manager. And I think if he was to leave Arsenal, I think he wouldn't be short of offers, from big clubs. So that's where I'd keep the energy, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's the word.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, to me, if you're a young manager, you're going to have these hitches. It's not always going to be linear, and you're always going to go up every single year, which he has done. You're going to have periods of the season. We had it last year. The main thing with me with Arteta is I hope he hasn't lost any bravery in his tactics. Because last season, we kind of had this kind of hitch last year, and around Christmas, and he found a solution, which was almost like a 4-man attack, and it's completely gone from his game. So we had Havertz in at 8, we had Trossard up front, we had Martinelli and Saka with Rice and Odegaard, and we would blitz teams in 20 minutes. And that was, I would say, that was the most I've enjoyed Arsenal football in a long, long time.
Yeah, me too.
And a lot of the teams that he beat were teams that were playing a mid-low block.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's that
so what's
game
changed?
against Aston Villa that's
what's
kind of
changed
scarred.
then?
Say that again?
What I said, what's changed? You were just saying that you think the Aston Villa game.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a mental thing then?
I think it is a mental thing with Arteta, because I remember after the Fulham game, what he said was he needs to, I don't know if it's tongue in cheek, that he needs to stop them from having any chances at all, because they had that one chance. But I thought we're a bit passive in possession. So in our first halves against Man United, Fulham, and yesterday, we're not dominating in the box enough. We're dominating around the box. We're keeping the team pressed back. But in terms of 5, 6, 7 chances that we could score, we used to do that last year, and we haven't done it this year at all.
I think that yesterday's game, and it's the same for the Fulham game. Like if Martinelli's onside and we score at the end and we win, and if Saka's chance goes away, if Pickford doesn't save Odegaard's opportunity, and if we just take one of those opportunities that we created, obviously we're 2 points off Liverpool and the margins are so fine, and all of a sudden the conversation is we're way back. We're back in this title race. Arsenal are there. They're 2 points off Liverpool with a game in hand. Sure, it's completely different. Yeah. And I think just the fine margins. I think Arsenal genuinely have been unlucky this season. I look at the season, I go, we have been really unlucky with injuries, with stupid refereeing decisions, with these fine margins in games not going our way. But at the same time, while there is certainly a lack of fortune, I do think that there are certain levels and accountabilities and things that we can do better. And you can't just put it all down on luck and misfortune. I think Arteta's changes in the game yesterday are worthy of questioning. I think that the decisions in the market, to an extent, there are some questions about the summer. And I think that that was shown by the panic signing of Sterling. It wasn't needed. Keep Nelson and don't sign Sterling. I'd rather have Nelson at the club. I think that's absolutely been proven. I know he's out at the moment, injured, and will be for a while, but he wasn't at the time. It would have been better to have Nelson than it would have been to have Sterling. So I think there are question marks there, but obviously we are still in a position where things, ironically, are still not dead somehow. Yeah. And if Arsenal were to pick up form again and start taking their chances and mentally were able to recover, we could find ourselves in a much better position. Anthony, I really appreciate your time, mate. I've got a few more callers I've got to squeeze in, but I really appreciate being patient and coming on.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, mate.
Thank you, mate. Mike is going to be up next. Mike, I'm hearing that people can hear you, but I can't hear you. So
can you hear me now?
I can't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back out, refresh, and then bring you in, because I think it's me. I don't think it's you.
Oh, okay.
So I'll be back in 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Okay, right. Let's see if this. I can hear you.
Lovely. Can you hear me now?
I can. It all fixed. All fixed.
Wonderful.
I don't
Wonderful.
know. It's so silly. StreamYard makes my brain boil sometimes. Anyway, you've been very patient, as are. And by the way, just for the heads up, I can see down below me Tops and Goni and LJ as well, waiting to come on. I'm going to get you all on. So just keep being patient, and you will get on. Talk to me, Mike. Where's your head at?
My head's a bit gutted at the moment. I'm looking at the amount of time and effort you're putting into this, and I'm looking at the number of likes, and I think it's awful. So come on, guys, let's show a bit of appreciation.
Checks in the post, mate.
Well, look, we're 8 games unbeaten, so I'm obviously delighted.
Oh, this is, you could be a politician, my friend, with spins like that. That's great. Yeah.
No, I mean. Yeah. Seriously, Fulham, I was philosophical about. I thought Fulham away, getting a point, we completely dominated. Another day, another couple of inches, and we would have walked away with 3 points and all been happy. Yesterday was a bit of a gut punch, I have to say. And I think you hit it. I think you're spot on earlier on in the piece in terms of the temptation is, of course, that we all look for things to blame. So Arteta is obviously going to be number one for any flack. But you rightly expressed concerns about the players, and that's how I felt after the game. In all honesty, I looked at the starting lineup. I thought that's great. That's about as good a lineup as I can remember seeing for a few games. When the substitutions were happening, I didn't have a drama with any of them as they were happening, not one. But I did have a massive drama about the fact that Everton defended with their lives, as though their lives depending on it. We didn't attack as though our lives depending on it. And that, I think, was the difference between the two sides. Now, I don't know why that is. We don't know the state of Odegaard after his long time out. We don't know whether he came out of the blocks flying for the first couple of games, and then game by game he's looked leggy. So when Arteta says, "Oh, look, it's tactical," that could be it's tactical in terms of we're just managing his minutes and we want him to be fit for Palace in the week, or we want him to not break down again. So I don't know. We don't know as a fan base the actual what's meant by tactical, unless somebody asked him that question. Well, what do you mean tactical? So, and I don't think I was delighted that Nyanweri came on for him. I didn't think that was a bad switch. Neither did I think it was a bad switch. Again, the point has been made that why don't we switch it around? Or why don't we switch Saka and Martinelli around? And yet, when we do that left and right back, then all of a sudden it's
I guess there are differences, aren't there, between like fullbacks and wingers when you switch. I get where you're coming from.
You know what I mean, though.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I agree on the Odegaard switch in the sense of like if Odegaard is to come off, of course I want it to be Nwaneri that comes off the bench for him. Of course I do. But I just felt like in a game where Arsenal's chances had been so frequent really in the first half, and in the second half it was dipping and we weren't there. And it looks like it's going to be a game where one goal is going to be the difference.
Yeah.
You probably want to keep on the guy that can create something out of nothing. Do you know what I mean?
And I do understand. I mean, don't get me. It's easy in retrospect to say, well, that didn't work. And I think Timber, Odegaard, and Saka were creating.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you move Timber, you take Odegaard off, and all of a sudden you've got one left out of those three that were creating, and that's easy to cite in retrospect. But the reality is, outside of those three players, and Rice, who was obviously, I thought Rice did okay in the first half, to be honest. Before he came off, I didn't think he had a bad game at 6, and I like him there. So I didn't. In retrospect, losing 2 of those 3 on the right side probably meant we were less creative in the second half than the first, and I don't think that's debatable. But there is still 11 players on that pitch. Those 11 players are of international quality. Those 11 players should, and we believe they have, a desire to win, and put their bodies on the line, because we've seen them do that before. And yet, for some reason, it's not happening now. Is that to do with some sort of handbrake being put on by Arteta? Well, we didn't see that against Sporting, and we really didn't see that against Forest, and we didn't see that against Monaco, really. We've seen quite regularly this first half, which is a bit cautious. If we look back over the last few games, even those games have done particularly well, the first half has been not particularly high intensity. And if there was one difference that I think is obvious from last season is that quite frequently last season we seemed to be out of the blocks really early. Those first 10 minutes we'd absolutely wallop into whoever was on the other side of the pitch. So that is a difference between last and this year. But the other obvious difference is last year we didn't have any injuries. This year we have half a squad out at times. So it's really it's really difficult to point fingers at one thing. I think there's multiple factors there. I wholeheartedly agree we need to address something in the forward line. As a matter of urgency, I think Trossard and Martinelli aren't cutting it on the left side at this stage for whatever reason. And I don't think we have outside of Saka at this stage. And if Odegaard is still working his way back up to some sort of 100%, then I don't think we have a difference maker. We have players. We have a very solid, as we saw again yesterday. We've got a very solid back four, whoever seems to play there, and good on MLS for yet another great performance, by the way. But in terms of what we need to solve this, which is the ultimate question, it isn't getting rid of Arteta, because that's not going to make a difference right here, right now. End of the season is the time to ask questions. Let's see where the dust has settled, what he's won, what he hasn't won, where he is, where he isn't, and ultimately whether we're a bunch of happy boys and girls or not. So
we'll wait and see. I think things could be so different. As I said, Martinelli's onside and we win that game, or one of the chances we had today, we're 2 points behind Liverpool, and it's just such a whole different conversation. But
that was an incredible save by Pickford.
Of course it was, and
9 times out of 10 that would have been it.
And that's the thing, is like when we have these conversations about like where Arsenal are at, we're not talking about Arsenal in the case of like they're like Man United under Ten Hag, where they're just horrendous. They're being outperformed every single game. We're just not doing quite enough to win, and that's our issue.
And the if comment isn't really useful, because we have to analyze where we're actually at and if it because that's how we find out where the problems are. That's how we find the solutions. So we sort of say, well, look, if we are not clinical in front of goal, then we need someone who is. If we are soft at the back, or we haven't got a goalkeeper who distributes well, then the solution is to get one who is. If we didn't have the best centre half pairing in the league, then the issue would be to replace that. So it's not a question of going back and making excuses, or it's part of analysis, surely, that we look at what's happened and potentially find out why that might is, and then we can find some solutions.
I think the solutions are I think there's some internal ones. I think there's some external ones. I don't think that swapping the manager out drastically changes not where Arsenal are. It could drastically change it for the worse, which is definitely a problem to consider in that argument. I think that there is more that needs to be done in the market. I think Arteta needs to be given a lot more, and I think that we need a lot more resources, and I think 2025 is big for that. But also, I think some accountability has to also be taken by the manager at times when he isn't willing to, and I think he needs to point out and be more upfront where he thinks things aren't clicking and aren't as good, what he needs more from the players. It's all well and good saying he needs his players to finish chances, but there was more. Like the urgency in the end of the game wasn't there. There was an intensity that was lacking, and I think there can be something about having too much control, and at the point where you need sometimes to coax oppositions out from their low block that we aren't necessarily doing either. So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
It would be good. I think it would be good in terms of the PR, the PR game that Arteta has to play, in terms of keeping fans informed, etc. Is to see some of that stuff we saw in the documentary, where he would wallop in the dressing room into players, and in front of the cameras he would be
Yeah, we heard it. I think genuinely Arteta completely ignored pretty much 90% of the time the cameras were there and was genuinely like he was. I remember him sitting there. I remember the Newcastle game when we lost out on Champions League qualification, and he said that in the dressing room. I know some people haven't watched that episode because they can't bring themselves to do it. But in the dressing room, he turns around and he's like, "I'm going to go in there and protect you guys." But in here, you're like, and he talked about how like he basically just admitted like he will say different things in the presser that he will do, and if people get bothered by that. Be bothered by that. That's just what he does.
Absolutely. But he could. I mean, he could sort of say, look, I've said to the players, without being specific, without throwing individuals under the bus, which none of us like, the players know I've made it absolutely crystal clear that this wasn't okay, this wasn't okay, this wasn't okay. And then at least it gives the message that
there is things to improve, and he recognises that.
Yeah. And that's part of the problem now. If he just gives the flat line, oh, well, we could have finished better. We all know we need to erase our game. That really doesn't inform and probably contributes to the meltdown that you see every time. Every time a result doesn't exactly go the way we want it to. But the season isn't done.
No, of course.
We're in every cup competition. We're 6 points behind first place. We've still got 5 and a bit months to play.
Let's keep up the positivity in that sense.
Let's see where we end up. We're a great team.
We should be going through into the last 16. Hopefully, we're in a quarterfinal. Should be a semi-final of a League Cup. We've got the FA Cup to come as well, and there's still plenty more games in the league to play. Mike, thank you for your time, mate. I really appreciate it.
Big up to you, Tom, and everybody who's contributed today. It's been a really good show. Thanks, guys. Take care of yourselves.
Drop a like on the video, people.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate your time.
See you later.
See ya. Lovely stuff. We got Tops and Ngoni and LJ to finish off the show. Tops, how you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Yeah, can you hear me?
It's been a while.
It's been a very long while, man. I'm glad to see that you're looking well.
Thanks,
I thought I'd come back to the YouTube space. It's been a couple of years, but I think I need to state my opinion on what's things that are happening.
Yeah, I'm curious where your head's at, man. Talk to
me. Yeah. So obviously the 0-0 yesterday. Obviously, before the season started, I already tipped us to win the league because I was happy with the trajectory we were going on the last 2 seasons. Obviously, the points tally, the goals, et cetera, et cetera. But Tom, I just think that the transfer window's killed us, bro. I really do. I think that left-hand side is really, really like hindering us in terms of how we're going forward.
But that's where we sign players.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the weird thing. I just think. Yeah. Because we needed so much depth and so much quality added into that left-hand side all at one time in terms of the left back and the left side of the midfield. And we brought in 2 players that obviously need to get accustomed to the league, not used to obviously the conditions of the Premier League. I think it's put a lot of pressure on those players really working out straight away. And obviously we've seen with Calafiori had a few injury problems. Marino obviously got injured before the season started. So I think it's taken them a bit of time to obviously bed into the system. But with that, it's putting a lot of pressure on Saka and Martin Odegaard. And obviously, Martin Odegaard's just come back from injury as well. So he's going to need time to adapt, obviously, get used to playing 3 games a week. And I think with that, and obviously us relying on set pieces, if you kind of stop those set pieces and keep Odegaard and Saka quiet, we just look like void of ideas, really. And I think that just in terms of how the players are on the left-hand side, the performances from like the likes of Martinelli. I just don't know what's happened to him. I don't know if you remember a couple of seasons ago when Martinelli and Gabriel Jesus were linking up on that left-hand side. It was like a case of Martinelli was going into that centre forward role and Jesus was going into the left-hand side and Martinelli was getting more goals and more chances and more shots at goal. That seems to be completely gone. So that's a real worry. On the left-hand side, and obviously with Marino at the minute, obviously it's a bit hot and cold with him just because obviously he needs to get used to the league, but I think we need to obviously see a bit more in terms of going forward, creating obviously overlaps and underlaps for Martinelli. We've seen it once, obviously yesterday he did like a nice little underlapping run and obviously put the ball into the box, but obviously went into no man's land. But I think that left-hand side is key for us to really try and score more goals. And I think with the likes of Thomas Partey not being in the midfield, even though I like Declan Rice in the 6, I do think we lack a lot of urgency in terms of breaking down low blocks. I don't think it's been a coincidence that we started slow at Fulham and he wasn't in the midfield. We started slow obviously in this game and he wasn't in the midfield and obviously came out right back. I do think he's the one of the people in midfield that he like punctures passes into plays and it quickens up the play, it speeds up the play like instantly. And I think we do miss that when he's not playing in that 6 role. So yeah, man, I think there's a lot of questions obviously to be asked about Arteta as well, just in terms of his substitutions, how we brought on like Partey at right back and not putting him in midfield. I know that Declan Rice had like an injury, so we had to bring Jorginho on. But I do think some of his substitutions, and like people were saying, taking off Martin Odegaard at the time, obviously he wasn't having a good game, but maybe bringing him on and moving him to that left-hand side. One of your callers said before that he could see like Martin Odegaard in that left midfield eight. I think I agree. I don't know if you remember the pass he made to Havertz against Chelsea when he scored his first goal. That was on the left-hand side. The pass he made to Trossard against Porto. That was a lovely bit of skill on the left-hand side. He seems to be more comfortable playing that pass into that left-hand channel for players to run onto and obviously finish their chances. So yeah, I do think, like I said, there is things he can change in terms of in the squad and like positionally, and obviously people have said as well, maybe swapping Saka and Martinelli to different wings in game to just try and freshen up obviously the lineup and just freshen up the team could be like an idea as well. But yeah, pressure's on, man. I just feel like obviously with Arsenal fans, and because we've been waiting so long for a trophy and obviously for the league title, there's a lot of pressure on this season because everyone just thought it's going to be upward trajectory. But we all know that seasons obviously are not linear. I was watching like a review of, I think it was the 2008-9 season, where the season before we probably should have won the league when Eduardo broke his leg. But then the next season we had so many injuries: Fabregas, Toure, Gallas, like all these players were always injured, Adebayor, Van Persie, and that season we ended up in the top 4 race just because of the injuries. And obviously this season we've had obviously dodgy like referee decisions. We've had obviously Odegaard injured for like 2 months as well. So sometimes the seasons just don't line up, unfortunately. But I do think there is a massive opportunity for us to win like a league cup, an FA Cup, just to win a trophy, just to build that winning mentality into the team. Because a lot of these players, like your Martinellis and your Sakas, have not tasted loads of silverware at the club. So I think for me, it would be key if we can try and win a trophy or 2 this season and then try and kick on from there if we can't win the league. Obviously, I'm not saying it's all done, but I do think we're either going to have to go into the transfer market and change something within the dynamics of the team to make sure we can have a lot of chances created more. Because like we were saying, like you said before, at Fulham and obviously this game, we had enough chances to win. But the problem is because we don't have that natural goal scorer, it's like we have to create extra chances to make sure we get over the line. Like we've seen at Monaco, how many one-on-ones we missed just because we haven't got that clinical forward. It just seems like we have to create like a plethora of opportunities to make sure we get the win. So it's been a difficult obviously couple of days, man. And obviously at the start of the season, because we had that difficult run and we had like offside, we had like red cards and injuries and stuff, we were looking at these run of fixtures to think, okay, this is where we can go on a bit of a run where we can win games all the way through. But unfortunately, obviously we've dropped 2 points to yesterday and obviously last week as well. So yeah, bit down, but I don't think the season's over. We're doing well in the Champions League. We've got obviously the League Cup quarterfinals. Definitely we need to win that, get to the semi-finals. Great opportunity. We could end up having a favourable draw in the next round if we get the likes of like Newcastle or Brentford or whatever. So I think that's definitely a trophy we can get to the final in 100%. And then obviously we've got the FA Cup at home to Man United, who we've just beaten already this season. So not all doom and gloom, guys. I thought I'd try and bring some positivity.
We got there in the end.
We got there in the end, man. But yeah, that's just my thoughts, man. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think you summed it all up really, really well. There are frustrations, there are shortcomings, there are still glimmers of hope as well that combine. It is frustrating, like to see the downside. I think there are things that explain it. I think there are things out of Arsenal's control that have explained it. I think there are things within our control that need to be addressed as well. I still do think there's a lot of hyperbole, around. I really do. I can't get my head around it really. But everyone's different, and everyone just views things a different way.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I think just in terms of like what you're saying about with Sterling and stuff, obviously there's probably something that's gone behind the scenes where Arteta's not really been happy with his like work rate, maybe off the ball. That obviously someone like a Martinelli and Saka probably provide. So he doesn't really trust him in games where it's tight or we kind of need like the odd goal to win. But I just think with that signing, I think it just kind of summed up like the transfer window in a whole, where obviously the fans were expecting like that marquee forward signing, just because even though we were fantastic last season in terms of scoring goals, 6-0, 5-0.
Well, that has to happen in the summer. Like again, the summer has to be the summer in 2025 where we sign a top forward. And in January we have to sign a good attacking option. in my opinion, and a defender as well to protect, like to prop up these injuries that we continue
to
be hampered with. Like I think there's no excuses for Arsenal in January. They have to spend, and I think in the summer there's even less. They have to go and attack it really aggressively and with big financial backing. Tops. I'm only moving on because I'm running out of time.
No worries,
thank
mate.
you so
Thanks
much.
for having me. Yeah,
really
take care.
appreciate it. Thank you,
Yeah,
man. Have a
Cheers,
good
man.
one. Lovely stuff. Next up is Ngoni. How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Hello, Tom. How are you doing?
Not bad, mate. I just want to check something. Are you the same Ngoni that's in the chat box saying I'm gaslighting people?
No. That's not me. No,
that's not you. Okay, just wanted to double check because there was one
Tom,
earlier.
No, Tom, it is me. It is.
Oh, it is you. It is you.
You know how it is when you're not on camera. You get a bit cocky and you talk nonsense. Yeah, but
that's fair enough. I respect that.
Yeah, but I think all I can say, Tom, is I think Arteta has done a very good job. He's done a very good job. I think he's a very talented young manager. But I think he's got certain limitations. He comes across as being very a bit anxious at times. I think he overthinks. I think he doesn't just allow his team to express themselves. He appears to be doubting himself because he is almost there. He is almost there. He's knocking at the door, but it's just probably that he's learned the wrong lessons from the times that he's not managed to take it over the line. So I think he's very close, but he's just way too conservative. And you know how it is as people, Tom. All of us have got our own insecurities, our own limitations. This applies even to the most talented people. And I would put Arteta as a very talented person, but it seems there's just some limitations within himself that he needs to get over for his team to perform. Because when I see how he's setting the team up now, right? There's someone who was saying he sets up the team versus Everton in the same way that he might set up against Bayern Munich, which is maybe just a bit too conservative, because you've got Gabriel and Saliba as your center backs, right? These are elite defenders. You've got Timber on the right. This is the right-footed player. He's excellent. Of course, he had the young man Skelly on the left. I've got no problem with that. He's got Declan Rice, right? Who is, as far as I'm concerned, a world-class number 6. Yes. Particularly in the defensive aspects of his game, right? So you've got all those players, and you've got also Thomas Partey, who's a player that I rate very highly. So of course he didn't start yesterday, but you've got all that talent in defense, right, or in midfield. But still, he's so afraid that Everton might transition on him, and Fulham might attack. He might give away too much if he plays a bit more attacking up front. He's just way too conservative, Tom, and he's really getting in his own way. And I think what happens is there are fans who might, and I fall into that trap at times when I might get a bit emotional and start maybe not using the best words. But I think what tends to happen is the frustration is not because people think he's a horrible manager. No, but they can see that he is there. He is there. He's almost there, but he just needs to let go a bit and allow his team to take a bit more risk, and he'll be there. But he's almost there now, but I don't know. He's just climbing up, and it's sad to watch, to be honest. Because this is a very talented guy who's close.
I get where you're coming from, and I don't disagree with really anything you've said, which always makes me laugh, because obviously kind of when there are people, I think, and you summarized it perfectly when you said when you're in your chat box, you say things that, you know, are a little bit more emotive that you wouldn't necessarily say the same way when, you know, you're on a platform. And I think that's true. And I think, I think verbalizing things rather than typing things down into a chat actually gives you the more genuine truth of where your head is at. And I think that's come through with you and Goni here. And I think Arteta does need to take the shackles off a little bit. He does need to be a little bit freer and want his players to express a bit more rather than being so rigidly attached to this system. What I will say is, though, is that obviously what he's doing, like, it is working to a point, because we've reached where we are now. The reason why we're not top of the league is because of fine margins in games that ultimately see the difference in points much bigger than what those fine margins look like in the matches. Arsenal were a shot going in yesterday from 2 extra points, were an offside call away against Fulham from 2 extra points, a mental red card call away against Brighton from getting 2 extra points, in my view. And obviously, in that game, we created 2 massive chances after the red card that should have been scored by Havertz and Saka. We were this Man City game is a travesty. Like, we were seconds away from winning that fixture at Man City this season. The other red card with the Bournemouth Saliba one. Again, I don't mind if you want to send Saliba off in that moment, but then you've also got to send off Tosin at Chelsea, and you've got to send off Van de Ven at Spurs. Didn't happen. So we're getting decisions go against us that weren't going in other games. You can look at the Newcastle game and go, that's on Arteta. That's not good enough. You can look at that performance and go, categorically, that's not. And even in the Bournemouth game as well, even though there were things that went against us, the performance were good enough that day. But overall, I still just look at this season, and I haven't even mentioned injuries in that little monologue there that have also affected us. But I look at that and I go, all the fine margins and all the little turnovers are all going against us. And it's just, I can't shake the fact that feel that in some ways we've just been unlucky this year. We are just being unlucky. And despite the fact that we've had this misfortune, we're still within touching distance. We're still there. Like, we're still somehow having it dangled in front of us. We're still in a League Cup quarterfinal that hopefully should, with no excuses, be a semi-final. We're third in the Champions League phase. Hopefully that pushes us into a top 16, you know, and we don't have to play those playoff rounds, and then who knows what goes on from there. You've still got the FA Cup, of course, to come. We've got a home tie against Man United, a chance to knock out, you know, another one of the bigger sides in the tournament. Like, there's so much still to play for this season. There's so much football still to happen. And I just personally think that a lot of people are too quick to pull the cord at the moment.
No, but do you know why that's the case, Tom? Because when people talk about Arsenal, right, especially when you've been following Arsenal for a very long time, it might appear, because Arteta is the face of Arsenal today, right? But this frustration did not just start with Arteta, because it's been 20 years. 100%. So people will sort of say things about Arteta and appear as if they are being unfair to him. But it's a result of the fact that there are certain things that are consistent with Arsenal, even before Arteta and even before the Kroenkes, where we sort of just tend to leave ourselves a bit short. This might be in terms of personnel, right? But in the case of Arteta today, it's personnel to some extent, but I think he's leaving himself short even tactically, right? Even the players that he has, he's probably not making best use of them. So this is where all this frustration comes from. And you sort of seen this happen time and time again. This is so the panic is as a result of, this is a story that we've seen before, where we are looking good, we're there, because you were talking about injuries, Tom. And when I'm trying to be fair, I say, okay, when Timber comes back, right? When Gabriel comes back, right? This is a game like Everton yesterday. When Timber is back, Gabriel is back in defense. Okay, we're looking solid, right? So you're now saying, okay, guys, let's go for it, right? Because we've been unlucky with injuries, and with some of our best defenders back. So okay, we've been just platformed the team in a way that we can get results. And you watch that second half, that first half go by, right? And you find that statistically, yes, you can say that, okay, we had so many shots and so on. But I don't know how often you watch Liverpool, Tom, and how often you watch even a team like Chelsea. Because for me, Chelsea are very young, and they're actually a bit reckless. But you can see, especially when you watch Liverpool, you can see that there's attack after attack after attack. This is depending on the game state, right? When they are desperate to get a goal, they go all out. They go all out. So you've got a situation where I don't know what the communication is in the dressing room, but you've got Liverpool dropping points, right? We're playing at the same time. And surely I'd like to think that if we're going for the title, there might be that the message that seeps into the dressing room that Liverpool are drawing points, so are dropping points. So guys, let's go.
I said he didn't know the scoreline. I thought that was a mistake. I feel like that if anyone in that halftime dressing room knew the scoreline, and you know, he might not be giving us the full truth, but I feel like if anyone knew the scoreline at halftime yesterday, that should have been in the team talk at halftime saying, look, Liverpool are losing here. You've got a fantastic chance to go and take this and take it to Liverpool and take the points. Use that as motivation. Go out there and absolutely kill Everton. I do think that there are, you know, Everton obviously yesterday came with a game plan to just sit up and shut the shop and try and take a point home, and they succeeded in doing that. So they're justified in the way in which they approach the game, because a point to them is the same as 3 points to us when you're at different ends of the table. And so when you're looking at how and what Arsenal were trying to do to break that down, we still created chances. We still created big moments that if it wasn't for a very informed Jordan Pickford, would have won us the game. I mean, you can look at the opportunities that we created. Odegaard, the chance that he put over the bar, really good opportunity, should be getting that on target. Odegaard, when he dragged that shot wide after flooring a couple of players, you know, should be at least getting that on target, probably scoring. Saka had a great chance in the box, decided to shoot when he could have taken an extra touch past Tarkowski, and then the shot was blocked. We saw Odegaard, of course, had that really good opportunity where Pickford produced the best save of the game when, you know, we kind of, I think it was Saka with the cutback on the right-hand side. Yeah. Martinelli had a low drive at close range that Pickford saved in the first half. Saka had that low volley in the bottom right-hand corner at the start of the second half. We created big chances in this game. We created chances that in other games you would see go in the back of the net, and they didn't. And again, it is these fine margins. And I think you're right about the pain of 20 plus years now without a Premier League title is definitely imprinted on how fans feel about this. But to that, I do say, why on earth, therefore, are you willing to chuck in the bin the first guy that's come along and re-established us and put us in a position where we are now talking about Arsenal as those title challengers again, and as in a position where we can compete for however long it's been?
No, I think what
that's
people are saying
generally, I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I think what people are saying generally is in as much as he's done an excellent job, the brutal truth is he's not won the title. He's not won. So yes, he's done very well, but he's not won. He's not won the Champions League. Of course, we're still in the Champions League, and that's fine. And he's not won the Premier League. He's come close. So I think what people are sort of thinking is he the one who's going to take us over the line? Yes, you've done very well, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with what you're saying, Tom. He's done an excellent job, and he's actually one of the top managers in the world. Yeah. Probably just one who's not won a major yet, but he's doing very well. In 2024, 2023, his team has been up there. But the brutal truth is he's not won it. So if you haven't won it, and especially if you haven't been picking up maybe the odd FA Cup and the Carabao Cup in the process, right? It sort of makes people doubt you.
Of course.
And they sort of say, okay, you're doing well, but you've not won it. So I think that's just where the problem is.
I empathise with that point of view, and I get that. You know, he picked up the FA Cup in his first season. He's picked up a couple of Community Shields in the season. Someone said to me the other day, and I hate talking about the Community Shield because it has got such kind of what's the word? A stigma, you know, attached to it being kind of a nothing trophy. Someone said to me the other day that the Community Shield is harder to win than the FA Cup because to be in the Community Shield.
Was that a United fan? I think
no. It was someone saying to be in the Community Shield, you either have to have won the league, come second, or won the FA Cup. They're the only ways you can even be in that game to win it. So the argument is that it's harder to win. I don't agree with, and I don't think it's a point. But I think that this idea that Arsenal, you know, are in this position whereby it's just it's so disposable to think about changing the coach at this point, and just because we've not picked up those trophies. At the end of the day, only one team can win the league. Only one team can win the league. Only one team can win the Champions League. Only one team can win the FA Cup. Only one team can win the League Cup each season. Only 4 trophies on offer to Arsenal at the beginning of each season. And Arsenal are, as of right now, and as at the start of the season and at the start of last season, are considered to be one of the potential top 2, maybe 3 teams to win those competitions. And that's where Arteta has put us. He now has to deliver it. Has to deliver a trophy. And that's why I've said in this contract, which I believe he has earned, this contract that he's in right now, he has to deliver the Premier League or Champions League title in this contract to justify a further extension. I believe he's earned that. Some people say that we should get rid at the end of the season if he doesn't win anything. I think that's silly because I think, there's not a replacement out there right now available that you're going to get. People can throw names out, and some of the names are beyond ridiculous. Zidane's never coming here. Inzaghi's not leaving Inter Milan. Simeone is, the thing about the last time Simeone won a trophy, you're going to talk about trophies as kind of a measure of success. It's not been great. The reality is that at the end of this Arteta contract, if he's not delivered us a title or a Champions League, I'm all for looking for the guy to take us to that level because it would prove to me that this is as far as he can take us. But right now, I'm not there. And we're still in with a really good shout of winning some big stuff this season. And until that's no longer possible, we're not going to have those types of combos. And
can I ask you a question?
I've got one more caller to get.
Okay, so if he doesn't win the Champions League or the league at the end of this current contract, who would you like to replace him?
Absolutely no idea, mate. I have absolutely no idea. I have no, and the thing is, I can say that, and a lot of people turn around and give you examples of names that they think, but the reality is that most of the names, if not all of the names I've been given, are just not realistic, or are just not going to happen. They're not going to be, So it's because you're not only, when you're saying you want Arteta gone, what you're accepting when you say that you want Arteta gone is that you're also accepting that you've thought about the fact that the people that are going to be getting rid of him are also the people that you're putting trust in to bring in somebody better. It's all well and good saying I want Arteta gone, and then saying, but I don't really know who we're going to get, and I don't really trust the people that have got to make that decision. Well, if you're saying that you want Arteta gone and you don't trust decision makers to then make the right choice, that's then on you for wanting to get rid of the guy that we currently have. Yeah. And I have to think about that as well, because I think we got lucky with Arteta, personally. Yeah. I think it was a real big risk when we appointed Mikel Arteta in this job. And I think we've got very lucky that Arteta's been as good as he has been. And in some ways, that makes me conscious about them putting my faith in the owners to bring the next guy in that's going to be better than him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. Look, I don't know. I just hope he turns it around and he just tries to, just chill, Mikel. Let these guys play attacking football and we'll be fine. We'll be fine. He's just way too conservative and it's not nice to watch.
No, I don't disagree that it's not been the most entertaining football of late. Hopefully that changes. And Gunnar, it's been a genuine pleasure. First of all, let me just say I appreciate you fronting up at the start of the call and saying, you know what, I said a lot of crap in that and I probably didn't mean it. So yeah. And it's good to see we've got another little Gooner in the world as well.
Oh yes, we've got a little Gooner here. I hope he's going to have happy days soon.
Thank you, Agoni.
Lovely. Pleasure. Thanks, Tom. Lovely. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Lovely stuff. That's going to bring us to the end. LJ, unfortunately, was going to join us, but he's on the move now. Chris has been out and about as well, so I can't get Chris on, unfortunately, either. And we are running out of time. And so, 2 hours, 47. Why do I do this to myself, guys? I don't know why. Oh, man. I should get paid for this therapy. I really should. I really, really should. I suppose I do. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I really appreciate everybody being here. I appreciate all of our callers as well. I appreciate your patience as well. It's been a long one, and I hope that you appreciate the effort that's gone in, of course, to putting this show together. It's always really, really it's enjoyable. It can be challenging. It's frustrating. I am now, once this show's done, I've obviously got a day off today. My Arsenal brain is switching off. Not even thinking about, what day is it? It's the 15th. We haven't done our advent calendar. 15. Where is 15? There's 15. What is that? Oh, I think it's the bar that I meant to get on Christmas Day. It's somehow managed to move its way around the board. It's a Dairy Milk, which is the favourite one. So I suppose, things are looking up already, which is a good thing. Amberly says you're our therapist, Tom. You should know this, and we love you for it. Thank you, Amberly. Thank you to all people in the chat for your kind comments. It does mean a lot. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m, bright and early once again. And looking ahead, of course, to the next game, which is Crystal Palace League Cup quarter-final. A chance, of course, to get back to winning ways and get to a cup semi-final that will create more matches in January. Yeah, it's January is looking scary. Have a look at those fixtures if you get a second. They are very scary indeed. Thank you so much. Drop a like, subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff, and I'll be back with you tomorrow morning. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.